Welcome to the Late Night with Chalky podcast.
Okay, here we go. Friends and family, brothers and sisters, don't tell me what to do, Lar. Welcome to the Late Night with Chalky podcast.
Just blew their ears out. We just talked about how sensitive this mic is, and you don't have to yell.
You talked
Do it
about how
over.
sensitive.
Do it over.
No,
Okay.
that's it.
All right. Well,
That's a good one.
Hey, our guest this week had all the talent and fierce competitiveness drive to stand out as a professional surfer, but decided to go the industry route instead. Not the first. We've had a couple of these interviews where people saw writing on the wall and just looked at other door openings and were stoked. This guy spent 16 years at Hurley as a sports marketing specialist, a global sports marketing manager, and then director of sports. I mean, I don't know. It's all marketing, but there's a bunch of different titles in there. He's been involved in all and responsible for all the many great events and all the athletes and strategic go-to marketing activations to help drive revenue globally for Hurley, which was owned by Nike, which had a lot of great resources. In the last 2 years, he's been at the Inherent Bummer, and he's been contributing there, been a producer, I don't know, we're gonna find out everything he does there, which is awesome. We love those guys. And we're pumped to welcome our HB Board Riders Club go-to double whammy, dropping top 10 all the time, Ripper, Brandon, Gilly, Guilmette. And I want to emphasize our go-to double whammy, because this guy
I want to emphasize how much he fucking rips.
fucking rips.
Oh, thank you guys.
I call him
Surprisingly, he fucking really rips.
as a compliment to one of your former bosses. I called you the Pat 2.0, like, because
Thank you.
super smooth,
Thank you.
Hasn't there been?
Dude.
Hasn't there been some?
but like never technically so good, never falls. Wouldn't say never, but you know, we all.
Yeah.
But like, I just was like, wow, that guy's got.
Did you get some footage
Great composure.
beating Pat in a mock heat? Was it Pat?
Pat O'Connell. No, there's a pretty funny video actually that Peter King made when he first started doing his
Tour notes, right?
notes.
Yeah.
And Simpo's on the beach, and he's kind of like the coach.
Yeah.
He's my coach
Oh,
against
he-
Kolohe in Portugal.
Okay.
And Simpo's Simpo
Simpo's
being
commentating.
funny, like as he always is. I'm out there just taking donuts on every wave, and Kolohe's kind of ripping. So it's just it's a funny little.
No, but I
video
think
to
you
watch.
surfed better than Kolohe in that. No, seriously.
No, I was like
I don't-
going
I-
over the
you
walls
don't
and
know?
the short
I,
waves and stuff,
I vaguely
but it's pretty
remember
funny, but thank
seeing
you.
it, but I don't remember the context of like who did what. But I know when you brought it up that.
Yeah. So I got it mixed up.
Classic.
It was Pat against John in an episode.
Yeah.
And it was you against Kolohe in that episode.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
He's
you
got
were
Yeah,
good.
Pat had a John one.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
he,
You won that
Took
heat.
it to him.
Yeah. Anyways, this guy pulled some huge wins for us in the.
Didn't you
board
get a
riders.
10 in the board
Yeah.
riders?
I did. Yeah, that was like one of the first events I got to surf in, and it was on Southside.
Left in the pier.
The waves were pumping that day, and yeah, it was. I got a left in the pier. I think when I first paddled out, I got one good wave, like kind of right away when I got to and so I had a lot of time left.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna just try and get one more, and like, hey, if I better it, then
Cool.
And
Not-
I
yeah,
think I got
nothing
an
loose.
8 on that wave, and I was like, okay, like
An 8 on your
sweet.
first wave.
But it was like 3 minutes in, so I'm like, okay, I could still get another one with like it
Yeah.
saved plenty of time.
Yeah.
And then I went back. I kind of knew where the spot was, and I went
Okay.
there. And the best part about it was Punker Pat was right there, and we worked together at the time. And so, there was a little bit of trash talk as we were like getting ready to go out, and there was no priority too, because I had just got one. So I went back to my spot, get this next wave, because I'm like, oh my God, this is better than the wave I just got, like looking at it.
Yeah.
And Pat was right there paddling, like, go right. And I was just like, went left again, had like a few turns, and made to the short break and hit it. Yeah, I ended up getting a 10. It was cool, man. It felt rad. I never got a 10 as like competing in like any pro event or anything like that. But just having like that be part of the team in the board riders format, I was just
the
like,
energy.
that felt so cool. Like being on the Lakers and you're like a 3-pointer, like at the buzzer, and everyone's
You
screaming.
win, we all win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool.
We
It was
talk
fun.
about HB board riders and just the whole West Coast board riders sing almost every episode, and how special and cool and how it makes the community that much better, our surf community that much better, and across the country
Absolutely.
now. So
Yeah.
hats
I
off
think
to
the other day they were just saying, you know, there's up to like 30 clubs on the East Coast now, and I think we have 20 here on the West Coast.
yeah.
And just growing, you know. I'm sure Hawaii's gonna like.
Yeah, Sean
Start
Yano, I
up
think, is
soon.
starting a chapter out
Yep.
there.
Yeah, Sean Yano's starting something out there.
So let's start at the beginning, Gilly.
All right.
Where did it all begin?
Well, I guess my surfing journey kind of started. I used to. I was born in Linwood.
Linwood?
And, yeah, and I lived in Southgate till I was probably 7 or 8, and then we moved to Downey, and I lived there from like
Fucking another Downey surfer.
like
dude.
Hey, from
8
one
o'clock
hood to 12.
Yeah, it was just kind of like that little bubble right there.
Because Linwood is bad.
Yeah,
That's
Linwood's
the
pretty
hood.
pretty rough.
And Southgate is
That's
hood.
7, 10,
And Downey is
101.
hood.
Yeah. So my grandma on my dad's side, she lived in Southgate, and my dad and his brothers and sister grew up in Southgate, and so we always stayed close to there. And then when my dad and my parents had separated, my dad and I moved to Downey, and so we just lived in like, you know, a little apartment or whatever. And he would like take me to my grandmother's house like super early in the morning. So she kind of like helped sort of raise me, take me to school, get me off doing my thing. And anyway, we were just around town one day, and my dad bumped into this friend that he grew up with surfing when he was a kid.
So your dad surfed.
My dad surfed when he was younger, and then he stopped for a long time, kind of once the kids came. So anyway, his friend Bill Lemelin, he was like, "Hey, I'm going to the beach. Like, you should come surf. I got a board if you want to go, whatever." And then I think we ended up just like going to the beach with Bill. And
What age are you?
7.
I was probably 7.
So
yeah,
pretty young.
I think I started at like 7. So we went to the beach, started surfing a little bit. My family would always go up to Carpinteria and camp, like in tar pits, during the summer for a week. And so once I started kind of like getting my bearings on a board a little bit, like, you know, we'd go on a Saturday, and like that was kind of it. And then once we started going a lot, it was like we'd go Saturday and we'd go Sunday. Sometimes we'd go camp down at Sano and like spend the weekend and do that. So it was just weekend warrior for a long time.
So is this guy Bill, you said?
Bill, yeah.
And he was an avid surfer?
Yeah, so
Okay.
he was my dad's really good friend growing up, and he just stayed surfing all the time and was you know, super
He was an
about
inland
it.
guy too.
He was an inland guy too.
Okay.
Grew up in Southgate and Downey.
Yeah.
What kind of board did you like?
My first board, it was you know, once we started going with Bill, my dad went to my grandparents' house, and we dug up like his old boards that he had.
Wow.
And I can't remember the shaper, but he had this like rad twin fin that was, I wish I had it, especially for this weekend, right?
Yeah.
The 80s comp.
Are you doing it?
I might go down there
Yeah.
and see what kind of boards they got lying around. I don't have any boards, but I think I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be fun. But yeah, it was just this like old twin fin of my dad's. And then I think the first board that he bought me was actually when we were in Carpinteria. And we had been going for years, like during the summer. And anyway, I have these cousins that are a little older than me, these girls, Jennifer and Brenna. And, you know, all the local boys would come around and like, "Hey, what's up?"
From
And,
Carpinteria.
yeah, they'd know each other from the year before. And,
Yeah.
and
Girls?
so this one
Right.
guy, he liked my cousin. And so he was a surfer, and he would always come up with different boards like almost every day. And I'm like, "Dude, I want one of these boards from this guy. Like, how's he have all these boards?" And so I asked him, I was like, "Hey, do you have any boards you'd sell me?" And he's like, "Yeah." Like, I kind of in front of my cousin, I was like, "Okay, he's gonna give me what I want."
Yeah.
He wants her
Yeah.
to like him.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
Right.
"All right." Like, came back down. He had this little, I think it was Dave White. Kind of, I don't know who that is, but it was like a 4'5" board with like pink rails.
Wow.
And he was tiny.
And yeah, and I was still super young.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I was probably 10 and I was really small. And so he came down with that board, and it was pretty old and a little bit beat up. But I was like, "Oh, how much do you want for it?" And I was like begging my dad, like, "Can I get it? Can I get it?" And he's like, give me $5.
What?
And my dad just was like, yeah, you're on. So I had this Dave White little board that
He
I
probably
kind of went
hijacked
like,
it and stole it from somebody.
that's kind of what I thought later on. As
I
I got
want- I
older
want
and started seeing
$5
how he
and
had
your
all these
cousin.
boards, I was like, okay, I see where these are coming from. But yeah, I got this rad little board, and I think that's when I really kind of went I want to surf more.
And I'm sure that's like
super
more appropriate size than what you were riding.
Yeah,
right?
I think I had a 6'2" twin fin, something before that.
So, Carpinteria, and where else would you guys surf when you were little?
Pretty much, we started going to Bolsa a lot. We'd go to the cliffs here and there, but then really like we kind of connected with some other families that had kids around my age that were surfing when I was probably 10. At Bolsa, at Tower 18.
Yeah.
So
Isn't it a trip though when you're that young and you're just getting into surfing and starting off at like Carpinteria, right? Like it's such a killer little beach. It's a hidden gem, you know, because you can't ride over the ocean.
Yeah, it's
right?
unreal.
And the waves
suck.
The waves suck. It can get good every once in a
Yeah.
great while. Did you ever get it good, or was it?
You know, when you're young, it just feels like it's always
Always
better
good.
back then.
Yeah.
But I remember there being plenty of like fun days, you know, just like, and when you're camping there, you're just kind of sitting on it as a ground. You're just like watching it all day, and you're like, oh, something happened, the tide's right, and it's good, or like it's glassy right now, and I'm out there. And
I mean,
it just was so fun.
The short break windows, like just growing up in Huntington, like talking about the conditions.
Yeah.
Short break would be like, I don't need to paddle outside. Like it's head high in the short break, and like it's like, you know, it seemed so much bigger, and everything was like better.
Yeah,
like you said.
totally.
Did you pick up on it pretty quickly, or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think when you're small like that, it's kind of easy to be a little bit agile, and you know, the boards were so thick. Like I had these like 80s shapes, you know, so they're like there's a lot of foam, so they're pretty stable, and I'm small, so it's just kind of like I think I kind of caught onto it pretty quick. I definitely know I got the bug like really quickly.
Yeah.
So bad.
And then, you know, when you're an inlander like I was, right, and you go to these different surf spots and start seeing other kids and teenagers older than you get intimidated and you're like, fuck, you know, like, did you experience that, like the localism, or?
Not really. I think I was so young that like everyone kind of just welcomed me in a little bit, which was pretty cool. And then especially when we were going to Bolsa, like that really became our like home beach.
Yeah.
At Tower 18. So my first like surf friend I made was Jeff Faust.
Jeff Faust?
Yeah, he's from Huntington, and so Jeff was like 1 or 2 years older than me, and he was a really good surfer, and he had already been surfing like a long time, and so I was just like, whoa, who's this guy? Like he's like me, but he's like way better. And so I would look forward to surfing that much more because I had a friend that was there, and I just could, like, not knowing at the time, I was like, oh, I like want to get better because he's that good. I want to be doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like, you know.
You need a sparring partner.
Yeah,
kind of.
He kind of became like
Somebody
that.
to challenge you.
Someone to stoke you out
Yeah.
when you're like, oh, my friend's gonna be there.
I mean, come
more
on.
excited.
If you get a good wave, you want one of your bros to see it, or
Oh yeah, of course.
you know,
Yeah.
like that is.
So
such
he
a-
was
a
really good when
push.
he lived in Huntington and surfed.
Yeah.
He's kind of a local at Tower 18.
Yeah, and his dad surfed there a lot, so like his dad and my dad became good friends, and then Jeff was there, and then his dad had been surfing there a long time, and he had all these friends that were like regulars there.
Yeah.
And so that just
Did
became
your
our
dad get
weekend,
back
like,
into
go-to.
surfing too then?
Yeah. So once Bill and my dad connected again, then my dad was like, oh, okay, cool, like bought a new board, like fully into it.
Nice.
Yeah, we started going like spotty here and there. We were still fishing a lot and doing other stuff, but then yeah, when we started surfing like full on, then it became like every weekend. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Because like living inland, like you said, it's these guys are fucking spoiled. Like J-Lar and people that live at the beach.
Yeah, I
like,
ride my bike
Yeah.
or skateboard down like every day. And then
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like for us that lived inland, like you would be a weekend warrior.
Yeah.
And in the summertime, if you could ride your bike or get rides, I mean, you know, you were really lucky to get rides to the beach at that age, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And so like,
Southgate is fucking far.
yeah.
Even farther than where I
During the summer and stuff, it was it was just a write-off during the week for me when my dad was working. I never got to go to the beach during like weekdays.
Did you skateboard or anything? Or?
Yeah, I skated a little bit. During those days, you know, when we moved to Downey, I kind of like was on my own little program. Like, at least when I went to Southgate, when I would go to my grandma's house, my cousin lived across the street, and he was just like a couple years younger than me. But he was like not really into skateboarding or anything like that. But we'd just play. They had a pool. We'd just go swimming, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, surfing for me was just absolutely like weekends only.
Yeah.
If there was the rare day where it was like not windy, and there's no surf line to like check the cams or nothing. But if there was a rare day where there was no wind, my dad got off work early enough, he'd be like, "Hey, let's jam down and surf."
What, if you don't mind me asking, what did your dad do for work?
He was he like managed this big factory, like a distribution warehouse that they shipped all these different food products and things like all over the country. So yeah, he did that for a long time.
So, at what age were you kind of like, this is what I want to do? How do I get here every day? Like, you know? Like,
yeah.
Because, you know, like you said, summer it's got to be brutal because you have all that downtime. School year, it's like, hey, I get it, it's winter, the days are short, but like summer rolls around. Were you trying to like link up for sleepovers with other guys at the beach? And
yeah. I think I slept over at my friend Jeff's house.
I'll sleep on the couch. I'll do the dishes. I'll do it. Like I'll sweep. I'll take out the trash. Like you come crash.
For sure. Yeah, I think I slept over at Jeff's house a few times and got to do that during the week. And I remember hearing it from Jeff on like during summer. He's just like, "Oh man, like I surfed all day. Like 2 days ago, it was good." And I'm like,
brutal.
I'm like, dude, what the heck? Like how's this? Like I need to.
How do I get that life?
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know. I don't think when I lived inland, I ever really like thought it was doable.
Yeah.
Until I was like, okay, well, once I get a driver's license or something, then I guess. But yeah.
Were you into sports, little league, or any of that?
Not really. Like I remember asking my dad if I could play baseball at one point in time, and I had just maybe started doing some little surf contests. Like I think I did HB Surf Series was my first contest ever.
Really?
Yeah, at the pier. I
How
remember
old?
I was probably 11 or 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that when Seth was running it?
Seth was running it, I'm pretty sure.
D-ball.
Yeah.
Seth
Before
D-ball,
D-ball.
right?
Yeah.
Before D-ball. And I remember it was the first time I surfed the pier, and I was in a division that like everyone was quite a lot older than me. I remember Peter Labrador was in my heat, and I was like, well, I've heard about him in the magazines
Labrador
and stuff, and I was like, kind of
He's
tripping
a
on that.
transplant too.
And then just paddling out by the pier, I'd never done that before, so I was scared. I was like, whoa, this is gnarly. Like, these guys are all like old and whatever. I think I like got third out of 4 in the heat, and it was all good. But once I competed surfing, I was like, oh, that was sick. I want to keep doing that. And I remember asking my dad, long story short, but if I could play baseball. A couple friends from school were playing baseball, and I wanted to do that. And he's like, yeah, let's sign you up for baseball. Like, but when you have a game on the weekend, we're not going to be able to go surf. You're going to be playing baseball.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, really? Like, that's how that works? I was like, all right, I don't want
Can't
to play
set the
baseball.
schedule?
Bad idea.
I'm
Dad.
good. Sorry.
Bad idea.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I was
Forget I
interested
brought
in
it up.
stuff like that during recess and like play basketball, soccer, baseball, whatever with friends. But when it came to like sports, I pretty much was like, this surfing thing's cool. I'll do this.
So going back to that HBC, like how did you find out about the event and like how did you sign up?
Yeah, Jeff did one maybe a month or a couple months before I did, or maybe even the year before. And you know, down at HSS, there was always flyers. They had like a bulletin board of like all these contests coming up, NSSA and whatever. And I think, you know, I kind of asked a couple people like, hey, I've never done one. What's a good one? And they said that one, you know.
Yeah.
NSSA is obviously like skill level, like advanced and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, I'm gonna check it out. And Jeff had done it. So Jeff and I both entered our like first few events together. Yeah.
Did you have success at all, or?
You know, early on, I don't think so. I think, you know, maybe they used to have an NSSA junior, and when I got into that, I probably like made a few heats here and there. I never like won anything like right out of the gates or nothing, but I remember NSSA junior was when I first felt like had a couple heat wins, and I was like, oh, that was sick. And there were still like Timmy Reyes was surfing in those things, and he was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Micah Byrne was around, like maybe did a couple of those. They might have already graduated onto like the open season or whatever. But yeah, I kind of got the competitive bug. I'm a competitive person anyway, so
Yeah.
I like to have that for sure.
Well, it's like, it's crazy because like the struggle of being an inland surfer and like watching guys that you know, like you don't really know how good you could surf unless you surf all the time. You know what I mean?
And,
Yeah.
And you're watching these
and surround yourselves with like
Good
locals
surfers.
and surfers that you kind of gauge on where you fit in. You know, like hey, those guys are way better, or you know what, like I felt, you know, like
Yeah.
it's all perspective, but it's also
because it's such an unfair advantage, right? Like them living at the beach and surfing, and you're surfing in a contest with them, and sometimes you beat them, right? And you're thinking, fuck, if only, you know, I could surf every day.
Yeah.
Like,
but Lyndon, I grew up with, again, you didn't have the accessibility to go surf every day. I grew up with guys that surfed as much as I did, and they just didn't.
have the talent.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
The talent, the drive, the whatever,
Yeah.
you know, whatever, you know, there's a lot of things you could, you know.
But what I'm saying,
but
though,
yeah,
he could have been, in your mind, did you ever think that? Like, fuck, man, if only
For
I
sure.
lived by the beach, I would fucking
Yeah.
smoke these guys.
yeah, definitely.
I don't think I had like the fire, like for competing like that of like, I want to like win this contest. Like that hadn't penetrated my brain yet. I sort of was just like, this is fun. Like,
Yeah.
and you got a couple prizes and you get a
Damn
comp
right.
t-shirt. And I was
Yeah.
like,
And your
I was like,
dad's
dude,
got to
this
be
is cool.
starting to get psyched, like, wow.
Yeah, and it's
You
like,
know,
hey,
my Grom is fucking.
he surfs, and
Yeah.
my dad liked surfing. He liked watching me surf. And
I mean, what's not-
instead of going to the baseball field and sweating it out in like, in Inglewood,
Yeah.
we're at the beach.
What's not to like? You're at the beach, which you're already gonna go do. You're at a contest with like a bunch of, you know, it's a contest.
Yeah.
You want to win, but you're getting a shirt, you're getting a goodie bag.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like an all-day experience or a weekend experience that
Yeah.
is like I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah.
Like that's how I felt when I grew up. I'm like I don't want to be on a soccer field or baseball field or anywhere else. I want to be here. Beach.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
your dad handled that pretty perfectly. Yeah, we'll sign you up.
Yeah.
But you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Saturdays aren't going to be surfing.
Yeah, I remember that, and I just remember going like, "Oh, that sounds."
Yeah, it's all
terrible.
there's a contest in
That sounds
Santa Cruz, there's a contest in
horrible.
San Diego, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that was fun. That was kind of like the beginning of me surfing.
Okay, so you start seeing these other guys, Micah Byrne, Timmy Reyes, and you see these logos on their boards, and their boards are like, you know, they have the best wetsuits, they have the best fucking surfboards.
Yeah.
Like, are you starting to go, fuck, man, like, I want that?
Yeah, I think, you know, in the early days of competing, like when we finally moved to Huntington, and
So when did you finally move to Huntington?
I was about 12. Yeah. So my dad met my stepmom. It was like a New Year's Day. I remember, and the waves were super good. We were at Tower 18. I was surfing, and my dad was sitting on the beach watching me. My stepmom, she surfs too. So she had rolled up, and she was just like, "Whoa, just like little kid out there." And he's like, "Oh, that's my son." And so they started talking.
You're the one that made the
magnet.
Yeah. I know, huh?
Your dad had a dog? or
Yeah,
you
keep
had a
it.
girl?
Who's that?
Yeah.
Who's that ripper out there? Oh, that's my kid.
And
You know, it's your
You
name.
should
Yeah.
chip off the old block.
I
that's
remember
all.
that.
You
Yeah.
should see me out there.
No, I remember I was like scared that day because it was pretty big, and like a lot of people had gone in, but I was like
Yeah.
too scared to catch a wave, and I'm just like, oh my god. So it was just like, hey, there's only one guy out there, like it's, you know, my kid. But anyway, yeah. So they met, like they started dating, and then like shortly after they were like, hey, she lived in Whittier, and they both were like, let's move to Huntington,
Yeah.
which is
You're like, hell yeah, marry that woman.
It's funny because at the time, I had just started this new school in Downey that I was going to. I used to live in Downey and go to school in Southgate, so like none of my friends lived near me. And I started this new school where I had all these friends close by, but they obviously weren't surfers. But when they go, hey, we're gonna move to Huntington, I was just like, what? No way! Like I just like feel like I'm settling in here.
Yeah.
Oh.
I kind of like fought them on it a little bit, and obviously I'm a little kid.
Yeah.
Had not really any say. And then anyway, we moved to Huntington.
Where to? What part?
I lived up off of like Bolsa Chica and Edinger.
Yeah.
kind of behind Marina.
Bicycle distance.
Yeah. And so
Downhill.
One way.
I started at Springview, and that's where Jeff went. So I was like, oh, okay, like this is kind of cool. And like, I think it might have been my first day or like the first week, but I got put into woodshop class, and it was with a few of my like best friends that I like now say I grew up with. Were all in that class, and
What grade
they had
is that?
like
6th grade?
It was seventh
grade?
grade. Yeah. And
Middle
they,
school.
They all had like, you know,
Woodshop was so
Billabong
rad.
and Rusty and like all the, you know, Quicksilver brands on.
Now, were
So
you
I was
wearing
like-
that kind
I
of
was
stuff
like,
yet?
oh, okay. Yeah, I probably had like, you know, thrift store, like old stuff and whatever, but I was into like Billabong.
Yeah.
And stuff like
Of course.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I could just spot it from a mile away. I'm like, oh, these guys probably surf. And they had like little wooden surfboards they were like messing on in class. And I was like, oh, sick. And I was like trying to kind of like get in with these guys. And they were sort of like,
Beat it, Downey.
you're from Downey, you don't surf, whatever. And I'm like, oh, all right,
Fucking rip
whatever.
your ass off.
And
That was weird.
yeah, so
That was weird.
that was around the time when I started like competing more often. And so I told those guys like, oh yeah, there's a contest coming up. Like, are you guys doing that one? And they're like, yeah, we're in it. And I was like, okay, cool. And
Because I'm going to beat you.
no, it wasn't like that. But I'm like, okay, sick. I'm gonna see you there. And then I remember just being down and seeing them all at the beach that day, and like I like had one heat that like they saw and they were like, oh, he does surf. Like,
Yeah.
I made the heat.
This kid from Downey
And they were like,
rips.
oh, okay, cool. And like we all became friends.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was like Travis Frey,
Hey,
Casey Severson, Jeff Joyce, Brent
Oh.
Locken.
that
Those were like my core group of friends I grew up with.
That's so fucking
the
awesome.
icebreaker. He surfs.
He surfs.
kind of fucking rips.
And he rips.
We'll
Yeah.
We'll let him in.
We'll
our
adopt
group.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can just imagine Travis and fucking Jeff Joyce and Casey. Is it Casey?
Casey Severson.
Severson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all those guys at one point in time worked at HSS too.
Yeah.
We all
I
worked there
know.
together.
I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a guy. I managed him.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's so funny, like, they're like, wait, you're from Downey, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're from
Yeah.
Downey. Yeah. You
And all
got
of a
some old
sudden
ass
you-
Billabong shirt, like we got the new stuff, like whatever. No, they were cool, but it was
Because they
it was
all
definitely
surf
kinda
pretty
like-
good. All those
Yeah,
guys
they all
surf pretty
rip,
good.
you
Yeah.
know? They're all really
Travis is probably a little bit better than those other guys.
Yeah.
At the
Travis was definitely surfing really, really well. Brent was like the best in the group for a while.
Brent Locken?
Brent Locken.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was just like bigger than us and powerful and like did big carves and it was like,
Yeah.
yeah. Everyone had their little thing about them, you know, that they were like good at.
So you guys all started off together in middle school at Springview.
Yep. Casey was a boogie boarder actually. At first.
No!
At first, yeah, for a little while. But
Dick
he
Dragger.
transitioned like
What'd
Right
you call
at
it? Dick Dragger?
at 8th grade or
That's
like
what we called them
freshman
back in the day. We
Yeah.
were, you know, like that's just.
You follow that Instagram, Shacked magazine.
Mm-mm.
Look it up. Today they post either today or yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's like Venice Beach.
Yeah.
In the little wall on the strand, somebody spray painted Dick Dragger on the side.
Well, it's like there was a lot of kneeboarders when we grew up. They were called halfmen.
Halfman, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like everybody had their coin. I didn't, you know, we just repeated what was already.
Yeah. So, dude, what a stroke of luck being able to move to Huntington, right?
That is.
And it was because your
Yeah.
dad was on the beach watching you surf, and his future wife walks up and looks out and sees you ripping, and
And
he
that's the
says,
icebreaker right there.
Yeah. I think before I paddled out, I actually saw her in the lot and I was like, hey, do you have any wax? And she gave me some wax and then I went out. So that kind of like, they started talking.
Yeah, yeah.
There, yeah.
That's so rad.
Yeah.
And then, you know, here you are
Did your
coming.
dad make you do that all the time? Hey, go ask that girl for some wax.
Hey,
Yeah, this one finally,
Right?
that one finally took the bait.
So true. But like here you are coming to Huntington all the time to surf, you know, and it just, you know, like you could have met a chick and you could have been South Bay or somewhere else, or you know, like
Yeah.
you already had your buddy Jeff that you met, you know, a couple times, and Like that was.
Was he at your school too?
Yeah, Jeff was at the school, so it was cool. Like my first day, like I went to his house, we walked to school together, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. You know?
Yeah.
And then once I made friends, like any thought of like I didn't want to move to Huntington was just like,
Yeah.
that was gone.
I mean, you are so lucky that you got to do that, and then the crew that you met up with, that are still your lifelong friends.
yeah,
Like that's pretty fortunate.
yeah,
right?
very, very fortunate.
And like the people that you hang out with, right? They say that. What do they say? They say you lay down with dogs, you get fleas, right?
What?
You never heard that expression?
You never heard that?
See? Just smart people
Oh,
hear
okay.
stuff like this.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Dog
you,
fleas.
you hang out with people, and that's what you become, right? Like, and those guys are good people. They fucking rip, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So-
They're great people, man. I couldn't ask to have any like better friends.
So what was like the progression on like boards? You're in Huntington, like you're seeing what these guys are riding. Like, what do you like?
Who's
Yeah.
who's the first kid in that group to get sponsored?
Probably Travis and Brent, maybe. They were super into it, like for a hot minute.
Getting into contests and stuff.
Yeah, getting into contests and just like reaching out. Like I remember in the magazines, like there was always like a phone number and an address.
I
to
think
something.
Travis told us about trying to get sponsored by
Yeah,
somebody.
we'd like
Yeah.
call the company, call them and like, hey, like we surf, we're from Huntington, like would you guys want to sponsor us? And like, most of the time they're just like, no. But then
Yeah.
sometimes they'd go, yeah, like what's your name? What's your deal? Like
Yeah.
what do you do? You
Remember
know?
Rob doing that?
Do you have
with
a
the-
resume?
with the skate zine? Like,
Yeah.
same
Rob
thing.
Roscoe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
doing the same thing, like sending out little like info about yourself.
So they're like, hey, do you have a resume? And we're like, no, what's a resume? And they're like, okay, well, tell me about yourself. Do you do any contests, your results, like pictures? So I'm just like, all right, like my stepmom, I was like, hey, you got a camera, like you want to use it on me? Like start taking some photos of me surf. So she would take pictures of like me and all the boys surfing a bunch, and we'd throw that in like a little letter and send it off. And, hopefully hear
Contest
something back.
results?
Contest results.
Yeah.
So Brant
Yeah,
and
as much
Travis
as you can.
first sponsors.
Yeah, I think their first sponsor was Pure Juice, and it was kind of when Pure Juice like just come out. Kelly signed on, and it was like they signed on with Pure Juice.
I
and it was
remember
like,
that. Yeah.
what, dude? Like Kelly Slater rides for Pure Juice. Like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Like,
Worst shoes ever.
I can't even remember. Like
I
got
totally
on
remember
later
they
on,
were
too.
so bad.
Yeah.
And yeah, but that was funny. That was
Yeah.
really classic.
Because getting a sponsor and putting a logo on your board is like it kind of just
Pumps you up.
yeah.
It elevates your fucking status, dude.
It's
For
all,
sure.
all the above, and we laugh about how like when you do get a sponsor, like you are the biggest like banner flag of the brand, like stickers everywhere.
Like,
You got-
I can't
like-
wear that. That's not my sponsor. Like,
Yeah.
you have to be this
Yeah.
head
It's
to toe.
like
and you're so proud.
Yeah, proud and
Well, it's funny because you come from inland,
Yeah.
one surfer out of 100, and now you're in a pool of all surfers,
Yeah.
right? And like that's gonna make you even surf better now.
Yeah, totally. So the after school sessions and stuff, Travis's mom, like all of our parents like ended up
Taking turns
my
taking you.
parents probably did the least because they both worked far away. But yeah, they'd take us, drop us off, pick us up. So it was like started going after school all the time, and then during summers I was like riding the bus with Jeff. I'd link up with Jeff and we'd get on the bus and like ride down and we'd go to the pier and started surfing the pier a little, and yeah, just kind of like it was all as easy as it could get.
Yeah.
what was it like going to the pier? Was it intimidating, or you guys just knew waves were better and bigger, or like?
Yeah, we kind of knew it was better
Because
and
you did a couple
bigger.
contests there, it wasn't your go-to spot because
Yeah.
it wasn't close.
It
but-
definitely didn't feel as comfortable. Sometimes we'd end up just at Warner because you didn't have to transfer on the bus,
Yeah.
so you could just take the number 70 bus, I think it was, and then take you straight down there, drop you off.
Hear that,
you have
kids?
to wait for the number
Bus.
one. And
Dedicated.
sometimes you're like, hey, the number one like is coming in an hour,
Yeah.
so we'd wait around there by Jack in the Box and like da da da. Like,
Couple of two
or we
tacos for
just go,
99.
Yeah.
we go, hey, let's just surf right out here. Like,
Yeah.
who cares?
And it
We're
gets
surfing.
it can be really rippable and good out there.
Yeah,
For sure.
and
depending on time.
best
Back in the
people
day-
and all that too. So it's
Back in the
nice.
day, was it Tower 33 or 26? 33 or 26
I
was
think
like
both.
was like the spot where all the like Warner.
Yeah.
Bolsa.
Sometimes we'd bring a skateboard with us onto the bus too if we wanted to surf like through the Bolsa a little. So we just skate down there with our board and go do it. And yeah, like you said, like have $5 for lunch and just go, okay, like 2 tacos and a jumbo jack. I was like, $2.
Yeah.
Yeah, you scored.
Dude, how, like, looking back on how simple your life was and how awesome it was, like, every day you knew what you were going to do is just fucking surf.
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
Like, that's it.
Nothing
like,
mattered.
Because you just had a towel. In the summertime, you had
Best
trunks,
babysitter on the
maybe
planet.
a spring suit, a backpack, and your board, right? And you would just plop your towel down and fucking just surf your brains out.
Yeah.
And do it all over.
Best day ever.
Oh my god.
Over and over and
all
over.
day. Just lay in the sand.
I'd blow through my $5 before like noon, because I had to eat, and then we just go bum money and just, get
Yeah.
change.
Dude,
I did that.
Me and my friends survived on $1.50, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did the
For
bumming
the day.
money a little.
Well, it was, we're on, the Pyramid Street. There's, strips and cheese was a little expensive.
A little bit more pricey.
Yeah, Wimpy's was a little more expensive. Yeah.
That zip code is a little bit more expensive.
I remember I was bumming money too. Like there used to be the Taco Bell right there next to HSS, and so I'd sit out there and like, I'm a little kid, like toe-headed little blonde surf rat, and people are just like, oh my god, like here's a couple bucks, like whatever.
Here's a quarter.
But I remember,
Yeah.
I can't remember which one of them. It was Keith or Chris Malloy came up, and I was just like,
No way.
God, this is one of the Malloys. Like this is gnarly, and I was like, hey man, I've just been surfing all day. Like I'm hungry. You got $1 or something? And I think he gave me like $20. And I was just like, favorite surfer. Like this
That
guy's
is
the
so
man.
epic.
You just
Chris
dialed me
Malloy?
in. It was
Or
Chris
Keith?
or Keith. I can't remember. It was so long ago. But yeah, once I started surfing the pier more, I kind of just got comfortable with it, and Tower 2 became like my spot where I was like, okay, if I'm not with my dad on the weekends at Bolsa or like at a contest or something, like I want to find a way to get to the pier. The waves are better. There's kids my age like ripping. Like I want to be there. And then I made friends with like a couple kids. I don't even remember who the first kids like from Huntington that surfed down there I made friends with, but they'd be like, oh, we're going to go to Sugar Shack, and we'd go there, and like Michelle Turner would just like write us a bill on the thing, and it was $0.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, I got all you
God
boys.
bless
We just
Michelle,
like
the Turner
bless.
family.
pancakes,
Sugar
eggs,
Shack.
bacon. We're just like, dude, I bumped $5. I don't even need to spend it. Like, okay, dial. Like obviously Grom, no tip. Just like,
Oh, $0?
I try to
Zero
make up
tip?
for it now, but dude, I can't even remember how many free breakfasts and lunch and stuff they dialed us
dude.
in. And everyone, she did that for everyone in the whole community.
Yeah, we had
cool.
we had a sponsor, and they had a board, and we'd go right on the days we ate, and
like 3 meals
and
a
I'm like,
week or whatever.
Yeah, I went past my hungry, So
Oh,
it
go
was
ahead,
just,
honey, what do you want?
Yeah, it was like for sure saved,
But isn't it crazy, like when you start getting better and you start going to the spots, right? The better spots, and how like it does take time to like earn your spot or earn your waves, because there's dudes out there.
Yeah, graduating to the pier,
Right,
and
like
finding your place.
Billy Webb.
Yeah. I mean, Billy Webb is a great example. You see him and you're like,
Intimidating.
Well, this guy's gnarly. Like he's got this board with this giant spider web black widow on the bottom. I remember, and I was just like, whoa. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't mess with that guy.
But he's hanging around Tower 2, and I'm like, all right, well, that's where my friends are hanging. I guess I'm hanging there. But he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, not all, but most of the guys like at Tower 2 hanging, in the summertime. Most of them pretty like harmless, cool.
Yeah.
They're like just like bigger versions of us. Like I just want to surf all day, try to connect with some chicks, go to a party tonight, But like they were no bullshit type of dudes when like
In the water?
Yeah. Like
in the water,
For
you
sure.
ain't, you ain't looking at waves if they're taking.
no, we need 10 more of you guys out here to like clear the lineup.
But honestly, I think in those days it was like the grounds, like you surfed the inside. That was just it. You weren't going off the back. Like I don't remember going off the back at the pier for a long time.
Well, could you imagine like, and I love this little kid, little Cruz, you know, he's out there getting pushed in by that. Nobody's getting pushed in. I never got pushed in ever. I couldn't even surf the outside. They'd tell me, beat it, freaking Grom, go to the kiddie bowl, get inside. Like I was getting shout out, like get out, get off the peak, out. I'm like,
I didn't post this video, but I was on the beach when you got third in the contest.
Oh god!
But the guy, who was commentating?
Bryce Myrtle.
Was that Bryce Myrtle?
Yeah.
It didn't sound like him.
Yeah.
But anyways, Bryce was talking about, I remember Jay, you know, when he starting to rip and he would be sitting on the inside all the whole time, and then all of a sudden, here he is, like, out the back. And we're like, dude, what are you doing out here?
I know.
And then
I was getting so, like, heckled, like, you know, as a kid, like, trying to, like...
But the show's not about late night.
Hey, since
The show's about Gilly.
Wait, side note, it's going to be about me for a second. Bryce Myrtle, he was a big dude. Like, they were like football, like linebacker, like style dudes. And I'm on north side, and it was a small day. Pete comes in, and there's like him and like 2 or 3 other dudes paddling. And I'm like paddling out. I have nowhere to go. You know? So I try to like duck dive, knowing like, dude, he's coming straight at me. He tries to bunny hop me. No joke. He's dropping in and he tries to do like a bunny hop and like
Skagged
me. Like it didn't cut me, but I had two gnarly bruises on my leg. And he's like, I thought I could get over you, Grom. Like, and you know, I had this like dead leg. Luckily, it was not harmless, but like, like you see that sometimes, like guys that had to do airs and stuff, and they, you know, they could get. I'm like, this guy's like, you know, at the time, probably 200-pound like linebacker. Easy.
Yeah.
But anyways, Bryce Myrtle. Hey, so can you hook me up with one of our sponsored beers from Shoots Beer Lager? This is a Japanese blend.
Thank you, Chris Slowly and Shane Magnuson of Shoots.
Another round.
Shoots Beer.
Shoots. But yeah,
that's a great name. I can't believe there's not a beer named Shoots.
Right?
So
Shoots.
Some Hawaiian like lager thing.
This one's a Japanese lager.
Yeah, it's unreal.
You're not ready for one yet,
No, I'm good. Thank you.
So you're starting to get good. Now, are your friends, Travis, Brent, Jeff, are they starting to go to the pier with you too?
A little bit. Their zone was more at the cliffs. Like they always went to Tower 22, which was super fun as well.
Yeah.
Less people. Like, you know, sometimes there's really good sandbars down there and stuff too. They always kind of gravitated towards that spot. And at some point, like, it was probably more once we got into high school that I sort of started to like want to go there. You know, I think
to the pier.
Go to the pier.
Yeah.
And I think you had asked about like the boards and stuff. And it was like kind of looking at these contests and like, you know, I was riding this. You know, my next board was like a 6'1" or a 6'2" like thruster. I'm still like a little guy, you know.
Yeah.
But I could surf on it a little bit, and I was like, dang man, these guys are riding like boards made for them. I'm getting kind of like off the rack or whatever, like, you know, some used board that was a good deal, and I had it for a long time. I had a couple boards like that, and then finally, I think I convinced my dad to like let me get something like a little smaller, and I was like, no, I can ride it, you know, it'll work. And I think he was like worried about me like outgrowing it or something. And then
for sure.
Frick, I just
especially
spent,
when
like,
they're spending money.
$400.
Yeah.
But anyway, once I got that, and I started like okay, the best guys that are winning these contests, they're surfing there.
Yep.
And that's where I want to be.
Yeah, that's where all the events are.
Like, the equipment, like they're riding, and I got the, you know.
And that's what's great about being involved in the events, you know. And I always say it's like, yeah, you could always, you know, do well, and even if you lose out, you're still hanging out for the day. And like, even when you don't have a jersey on and you're warming up or just free surfing on the side of the event, you still feel like you got to put on a performance. You got to up your performance, you know, because like everybody's watching. You always want to do like a good turn. And I remember like in contests, I'm going to surf right next to it, because at that time, all the team managers were on the beach all day anyways back in the day. And I'm like, I want to flare up next to the contest because I wasn't winning heats a lot. So I just wanted to make sure.
We knew that.
Yeah, just kidding. But no, it's like being at the contest was like, you know, as important as, you know, doing well in it, you know?
Yeah. Isn't it kind of weird though? Like, it's another thing that makes a big difference in your life of like how much better you can get from one surf spot to the next. You know what I mean? Because like,
Well, you lay with dogs, you get fleas.
right?
But yeah, like you said,
Northside-
traveling to different waves and different
Yeah.
breaks.
But Northside is like,
There's
There's
Kid
so
Plays,
much more
but then there's
talent.
like Danny Nichols and
Yeah.
Jay Larson, like you
Who?
guys just I was, you know, you'd see them paddle out and you're like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
another level, you know?
Yeah.
Voluptuous, you know, we'd run that thing through the ringer a million times over and over.
Oh, no.
Our section
you had to
back,
bring up
too,
voluptuous.
was like one of the bangers in that movie.
Yeah.
So it was just like, whoa, like this guy's in the movies and like he's gnarly. you
Yeah,
know?
there's a
So-
couple dudes from Huntington at that time
Yeah.
when you were younger that were like at the forefront of surfing.
Yeah. I mean,
D-Ball.
and then you go D-Ball
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, and then there's like Brandon Tipton, who's like
Yeah.
barely older than me. The Turners, Sean Ward, Micah Byrne, Timmy Reyes. Like, dude, there's just a laundry
Heavy.
list of people.
Yeah.
Danny Nichols, like,
Yeah.
that are just so good
Yeah.
that it's just like watching a surf video when you're surfing. So
Yeah.
you're like, okay.
And you know, that talent is on North Side and South Side,
Yeah.
probably, right? And there's not that caliber of surfing going down at Tower 22.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I mean, Travis and Brent and all my friends, like we all surf, you know, similar and like they're great surfers.
Yeah.
But it felt like the best guys, I was like, okay, well, the
Yeah.
best guys that I have access to, they're right down the road.
Yeah.
Like, why would I not go
Yeah.
there and like just to watch? I mean, like anything, you know, you hang around like the right people
Yeah.
and places, like it starts to rub off on you.
Yeah.
Well, I rode for Quicksilver, and they used to do these workouts at 54th Street, and you know, on Tuesdays, and that opened my eyes because we'd go down there every once in a while, like surf 28th Street or Blackies when we were like younger, and you never really surfed the upper jetties because I was, you know, like 12, 14, you know, like not very old, and then like you get that teenage years, and then you're starting to surf, and you see all the pros, and like, well, yeah, all the pros are at 54th, 56.
Yeah.
You know, maybe 28, but like you're going again, like you just described, like you're seeing that at all these like, you know, hot spots, whether it's creek or lowers, or, you know, you go to Oceanside, and, you know, like the places that would be are like, you know, go-to surf spots,
Yeah.
you know?
So would you and the boys like sit and watch Voluptuous and like the Taylor Steele stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
all
Just go to somebody's house and just
Yeah.
fucking.
Yeah, I mean, it's dude,
Geek
it's
out
such a
on
different time now with the internet and stuff. But
sucks.
dude, there was no internet
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
Still, you know.
It was,
So
it
once a
was
year, there was
VHS.
like a VHS came out. Taylor probably put one a year out, like kind of like clockwork for a few years.
Yeah.
Then there was a handful of other people making a movie, Lost and Snapping Turtle that did Voluptuous. Like,
Yeah,
so
and
whatever
Josh
the one
Palmer.
was, like, I remember Travis kind of had all of them. You know, he was the one that like the day it came out, they're like, we're going to HSS, we're getting a movie before we serve.
I remember.
That's that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we just sit around and just like slow mo, rewind, like what, and like try and mimic it, like watching it, and just like how did he do that, and just dissecting every single thing, you know,
Yeah.
and like finding like who's your guy.
Yeah.
Like
Who was your guy?
my guy was Bruce. Once there was like Bruce Irons came out.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think before that I really liked Rob Machado a lot.
Yes.
He was like my favorite. I kind of had like a Taylor Knox, Rob Machado like phase. And
When
then once
Taylor was on Rusty,
yeah,
Like
Taylor was
that.
on Rusty.
that was
Yeah.
like,
And once I saw Bruce Irons, I was just like, I mean, every kid probably, but I was just like, this is it. Like, this guy's he's James Dean. He's freaking
got it all.
surfs good. He can rides the backside barrel with no hands.
Charges.
Yeah.
Charges. Like
He's got a
does the
bad
hugest
attitude.
airs. He's just the attitude. Everything about him was just like, whoa, this guy's like iconic.
Yeah.
You know? And I sort of was like, I want to look like that when I surf.
Yeah.
You know?
So, what was your first sponsor? Or who was
My
your
first sponsor, you know Kevin Ashford?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kevin used to have this little surf shop called Surf Addiction.
Okay.
It was in like Fountain Valley, maybe.
Okay.
And Jeff, my friend, he got sponsored by them. Like maybe Kevin met him at a contest or
Wow, I
something.
didn't know
saw
Kevin
him,
had a shop.
and I was like, oh, that's so rad. You're sponsored by Surf Addiction, like the shop. And I went there with Jeff one day just to like see it. And it was like, you know, it's a surf shop. I was like, whoa, this is so cool.
Inland.
This is your sponsor. Yeah, in Fountain Valley, I
Okay.
think. And then Jeff, I was like, hey, will you ask him if he'll sponsor me too? And he's just like, yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
So he asked Kevin, like, hey, will you sponsor my friend? He's like, of course. He's just like, sick. What do I get? Like, some stickers. And I was like, yeah, stickers.
How many stickers?
A bar of wax.
And dude, I think he gave me like some wax and
Yeah.
like a hat, a t-shirt that said Surf Addiction. And I was just like, dude, I'm on the team. Like,
And you got a
this is
sticker
unreal.
to put on your board, which is a
Yeah.
huge accomplishment and milestone in your young career, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So
It was,
you're starting to do more and more contests, and then
Yeah, at that point, I think I was competing pretty regularly. You know, there's always the HB Surf Series. There was like CCSA. There was NSSA.
Were the boys
Open
doing them
Explorer,
too?
Junior. Yeah, I think Travis was doing quite a few, and Brent was doing quite a few. I think I kind of like got way more into it and was like doing even the weekends they had off. I was like finding one, like, Dad, can I do this one? Like, because my dad's like fronting the bill on all this stuff still.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, yeah, cool, like, let's do it. And we just go, spend the weekend down there, whichever one it was.
It's cool.
And yeah, it was super, super fun.
So, who was your first like major sponsor?
My first major sponsor, gosh, I had a bunch of like random sponsors for a while, but I think like I never really did very well like as a young kid. Like I probably had like some finals and won some like smaller events and stuff like that. But then once I was like 16, 17, 18 is when I like something clicked for me. And I think I got on some good boards. Sean Jensen was making my boards.
Oh wow!
And I used to live down the street from his factory, and I'd go up there every day after school and just like check it out, what he's doing, sweeping up the floors, whatever. And get chased around by Waterman. Waterman one time like
Oh my God.
stripped his clothes
Graybeard?
off and chased me around the whole parking lot. And Jensen sat there laughing, and I'm like mortified, just like, what is going on? Like, but
Waterman.
Waterman, yeah.
Graybeard?
Chris Ryan.
Chris Ryan.
Chris Ryan.
Waterman.
The Waterman. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally the Waterman.
Yeah. He lives in Arizona now.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
He
okay.
he stalks us on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
does.
tries to send me like Facebook messages. I see emails come through like, Chris the Waterman Ryan is sending a Facebook message once in a while, but I don't look at Facebook.
Sketchy.
too much.
Sketchy.
Yeah, I'm not opening. I know it's something
So
weird.
Yeah.
Sean Jensen was your first board sponsor.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Jensen kind of like dialed me in on some really good boards. He's an incredible shaper. His thing was that he's just like he's so into so many things. I feel like that he'll shape and then he'll just be like, oh, like I'm starting to build all these kite boards. And like this is way before like Kai Lenny, obviously, or like anyone was really doing that. I'm like, what is that? Like that's lame, dude. Like, where's my board?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
he
was
was-
bored, dude.
So
Yeah,
he
he
just
was
kind of
like
like
the first
go off on tangents
to get,
doing
like, the-
different stuff, but he had a machine.
Yeah, he was
which,
the first to get like the
CNC?
no one
yeah,
had machines.
which was like
he was cutting boards for Lost and stuff, and like I don't know, he had some really really good boards. Like some of my best boards when I was a kid. Sean made me like some incredible boards.
yeah.
Yeah. So I got on his boards and I had the Surf Addiction thing going. I think once I was like 17, Pod hooked me up with Counterculture.
What?
And Counterculture at the time, it was like smaller brand, but it was legit. Like they had
Dude,
Bobby,
dude.
they had Dino and Dino,
And
they had
Devin
D-Law.
Law.
Yeah.
Like they had a gnarly team. And,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Flea
whoa,
was on
like,
there?
Flea.
Oh yeah, Flea was on there.
Okay.
And so I rode for Counterculture for a hot minute. And that was rad, dude. I was like really, really stoked to be
That's
on
kind of a big
Counterculture.
deal.
Yeah, it was sick.
'Cause
One
it's
is
a
a local
Huntington
brand,
brand.
yeah, but it was
Yeah.
they came out, right when like S&P and Split, like that kind of within a few
Ezekiel.
years. They just a whole new
crop of
killer
becoming brands.
But
Yeah.
they were surfer owned, and like
Yeah.
they just had good shit. They
Yeah.
had their own look.
Who started it? Shuey and
Mike
Hurley.
Schuler. Yeah. Pat.
Yeah, okay.
So Pod
Yeah,
said,
Pod was
"Hey."
like the team manager or something, and dude, I honestly can't even remember like how it came about, but they used to do a rad little Grom series during the summer. It was free, and it was just like every kid got like prizes. Like it was like the what do you call it? Show up and just like participation award. Like
Yeah.
everyone got like a participation goodie
Yeah.
bag, and then if you made the finals, it was like on top of that, like
Yeah.
surfboards, skateboards, like gift cards, just you name it, and it was just
Yeah.
like holy smokes, and it was all free. And I remember I won one of those things, and I think that's when Pod was like, hey, like you don't have any sponsors, like what's your deal? I think at that time, maybe I was still even riding like these old boards that I had, this like 6.0. I had a 6.0 Bruce Jones shortboard, and Pod picked me up, and then shortly after that, I think I started riding for Jensen's boards. Yeah.
Nice. What was your first job?
My first job was I worked at Vaughn's, the grocery store across the street from Marina High School.
Nice.
So yeah, I was in high school. I was going to Marina, and Jeff
Bad
got
boy?
a job at Vaughn's. Yeah.
Cart guy?
And was like, yeah, you kind of all of it. That's your
Yeah.
that's your zone when you first start. Is you're on the carts and you're on bag boy. And so Jeff was working there for a little while, and I was just like, oh man, I think I need to get a job. I'm like, I think I was 15. Like, I'm gonna get a car next year, hopefully. So I need to start saving money. So I just went, all right. Like, I know Jeff works there. He said it's pretty cool. My other friend John Olazabal, he worked there too. He lived across the street. He was like a really good longboarder. He plays in the Dirty Heads now.
Nice.
So
I
John
just saw
went there.
Jared Watson today.
Oh yeah? Yeah, Jared went to Marina with me too.
But that the supermarket gig, you could work you could work around your
Surf schedule.
Yeah.
Your surf
So
schedule.
I was like, I'd go to school, and then unfortunately, like after school, a lot of days I was working.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get that after school surf. But once I was in high school, we were on surf team, so we were every morning we were
Yeah.
surfing.
Yeah.
That was like part of zero and first period was surf.
Who's your surf coach then?
We
Wellesley?
kind of had a few. So we had this guy Tim Brogdon, that was the coach when I was a freshman, and then maybe my sophomore year. I feel bad. I'm gonna forget his name, but it was the science teacher at Marina was the surf coach, and he like. I don't feel like as a surfer he ever like really had the like respect from the kids because he wasn't like a good, great surfer himself. And then maybe it was like my junior year, Wellesley slid in to help him, or middle of sophomore year, and then junior year, Wellesley was the coach, and everyone loved Wellesley. Like, he was just
mad
front
respect on how hard he
surfer,
ripped. Yeah. He's
rips.
in the industry.
Yeah, he's
like,
in the
yeah.
industry, like kind of. He was just Captain Cool,
Yeah.
cool dad, And so Wellesley was the coach throughout the junior year, and then my senior year, we had moved, and I was like, I always kind of wanted to go to Huntington just because the reputation of the surf team and Andy Verdone and just everyone that went there, I was like, dang man, they won so many national titles and all that stuff, and I was like, man, I want to be a part of that, And so I ended up convincing my parents to let me switch my senior year. I started going to Huntington.
Ooh.
And that's kind of like, probably like became a little detached from that group of friends I had for a little bit, and was there with, kind of a new set of friends of like Sean Ward, John Gorak, Daniel Bemis, Mike Ferragamo, like Brad Ettinger. All those
Stat.
dudes. Yeah.
Stat team.
Yeah.
It was insane, like the best.
To think-
High school was the best thing ever. I can't even imagine. I think I tried to convince my parents to let me do homeschool too, which was just a straight like, what are you thinking about?
Yeah.
You're not doing that. And I couldn't imagine if I had done homeschool, which seems like a lot of kids do that these days. But
sure.
high school was definitely like
A great time
some
in
of the
life.
best 4 years of my life.
Yeah.
Dude, all my friends are here.
Yeah.
Like, you're learning stuff, but at the same time, you're like just like
Social
creating a
networks,
joke of
memorable,
everything, and
yeah.
like then
Dude,
there's the dances and
it's
all the
the-
fun
yeah.
stuff and the hot
It's the
chicks
social
are
scene.
around, and you're
Like,
yeah.
think if if you wouldn't have got that wax from your stepmom.
Yeah, if I had my own wax that
You'd
day,
still be
Yeah.
down there.
Like, you would still be living in Downey.
I could be. Yeah, I wonder what I'd be doing. I
Because
might work at Vaughn's.
yeah, Because I mean, like, it's crazy. You got to move and take the bus or ride your bike. I mean, you could never have done that from frickin' Southgate down.
Yeah, no way.
And then, you know, you surrounded yourself with surfers, right? And then you have surf class? Are you fucking kidding me? And
That was
then
the biggest one. With surf class, to me, it was like, this is school credit to go surfing. Like,
Yeah.
and everyone that I like would say that to that didn't live by the beach was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
But you get to go do what you love doing, and you get to show up to school late, way later than everybody else because
Yeah.
it takes
Yeah.
up, you know, and you're rolling in just,
Yeah.
I mean,
Bronze.
At the same time, there was like a lot of
Bronze,
it's
salty.
fun, but it's like, dude, you're waking up at like 5:30 because surf class is at 6,
Yeah.
and so it's, you know, a lot of kids aren't waking up super early and not dedicated. During the winter, it's cold, it's windy, it's like
It's definitely a different
surf
breed of
class
people.
is still going,
Yeah.
you know.
yeah, you'll see surf class
But
thin
when
out
you-
on, you know, like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, first couple weeks, Verdone
Yeah.
always would say like, yeah, after a month, you know,
It's like gym
You start-
memberships at January.
do the
Well-
pier paddle the first couple weeks, and then that kind of like a handful of kids are like, oh,
Well,
this is what I was
I-
expecting.
I mean, I got into going early because I had an older brother and he was in high school. You know, I got to tag along a lot earlier because you know junior high didn't really have a surf team. You know, even though we did, we just didn't compete. You know, we just you got a little team together. PT was our coach, which was epic.
Sick.
But the now taking my son like down in the mornings before school. In the mornings we don't go down, whether the weather or the wave suck or he's not feeling it, whatever. There's a big difference in like how the day starts and how he feels and how, you know, like
Yeah.
waking up a little lethargic versus getting up early and being super psyched. And I think it helps set the rest, you know, sets
Yeah.
the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Which a lot of other people, like you said, how hard it is to get up that early. But it's, you know, if you're a surfer, that's just kind of like in your DNA.
Yeah.
You have to.
It just becomes that discipline, you know, and
Yeah.
discipline's great. If you have that like routine, it just makes you feel good and puts a smile on your face to start the day.
Yeah. I think that's how we stay young because of that, you know, of a routine of surfing.
Yeah, but to have, I mean, now there's so many kids in surf class that don't even know how to surf. They're in soft tops. They just go down there and like check in and just sit on the beach. Like I see it, and I'm like a bunch of guys and girls where they barely might paddle out. Like back in the day when you had to be a surfer. Like you had to go run, paddle the pier, be able to handle yourself in like waves.
Yeah.
Or you're not making the cut for surf class. Like
Yeah.
now it's like, I don't know, it's a little sketchy.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a free for all.
Yeah.
I know if Verdone always made it so if you weren't surfing, you better have like a good excuse of like you're hurt, which is, you know, terrible, not good, but or else if not and you just didn't want to surf, you're picking up trash.
Yeah.
And he's not gonna like give you your like you had to go
Sign
down
off.
and check in that
Yeah.
you made it to your class. And if you weren't surfing, you're picking up trash. And you brought a full bag of trash, then he'd check you off.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
yeah, it's cool.
Their
You got a good
accountability.
system down there.
And you know, most people don't know it's like a CIF sport. You get the letter and you get to compete with other schools, and you know there's that. It's one thing to be able to skip a class or PE and be able to like show up late, but to like compete against other schools and obviously going to Marina for years and knowing that you know like HB is always
Yeah,
winning.
It felt like most schools, obviously, like football and baseball, like the big sports are like very prestigious, and you
Yeah.
just hear more about them.
Yeah.
And it felt like Huntington had that reputation for surfing.
For sure.
And it was like that's the best school in like the country to go to if you're a
Yeah.
surfer. You know,
Yeah.
there and then San Clemente, like kind of in those years when San Clemente started like really coming in
Yeah.
hard. Like maybe just a few years after that, where it became really
So in high school, did you start doing NSSA Opens and like some of the other?
Yeah, I think I did some explorers and then a handful of opens. Probably my senior year, I started to like do a little bit better, and probably right after like graduating high school is when I kind of like felt things click. And I think it was in my first couple like pro junior and like QS events that I felt like just something
The
kind of like
ability
a
was
little
there,
spark came
yeah.
to me. Like, I don't know, skateboarding always felt like this. I remember when I was trying to learn like a rock to fakie on a little mini ramp, and it was so hard, and I was like too scared to like let it go. And then once I finally let it go, I was like, oh my God, that just opened up like 100 other options to me. Like, I can do this.
Yeah.
You know, now I can do that, and I can do that. And surfing kind of did the same thing where I hit a plateau probably for a while, and then like just kind of like kept going it and refining, and then finally you like hit the next phase and you go,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I can get there on the wave, and I can do this. And I actually want to try this different board, and you know, your surfing starts to evolve.
And it's not always as, you know, you're learning and you're in youth. It's not like you're always just improving. You know, you do plateau and you do step back, and it could be equipment or just could be growth spurts, and you know, like there's a lot of moving parts and pieces of puzzle, because it's like you know, it's not easy. You know, like surfing's the fucking hardest sport.
Yeah.
ever, you know.
Yeah, and then you one day the waves are good and you feel like you're ripping, and the next heat you're like, oh, it's afternoon onshore, low tide, dumpy closeouts, and you're just going, well, I don't really practice that often. And
Yeah.
so it's
Well-
like you kind of need to do all the conditions.
Yeah.
Even the CTs, you know, like fast forwarding to my career, was you go to all these events and you're like, half the time these guys are surfing, like the waves are pretty average, and you only see the highlights of like, yeah, those were the first 3 heats of the day, and then it kind of like went weird, and
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
one talks about those heats, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a little bit of
So growing up with like your dad that's a surfer, and you're in Huntington, where was your first like surf trip? Like, you know, did you guys do a family trip or our friends trip? Max or Hawaii?
yeah.
or-
We went to Hawaii. I remember my dad's friend Bill was like going to Hawaii and convinced my dad to go. So we went to
Winter?
Hawaii. This was even maybe prior to us moving to Huntington.
Wow, really?
Yeah, so I was still pretty young. I just remember because the board that I had, and my dad hadn't met my stepmom yet. But yeah, we went to Hawaii. That was like the first big surf trip, and it was during summer, and we just surfed in town and surfed Ala Moana, like firing a couple days.
Wow.
All over like pops and threes, and we
And this-
surfed threes a bunch, which was pretty cool. I didn't really realize it, but like it's, you know, it's
Yeah.
so far of a paddle, and
Oh my
There's so
God.
it
many
was
good
like
waves,
kind of
too.
mellow.
When you're-
The crowd, when I was at Grom, we were just dawn patrolling it and like scoring. We kind of scored.
Dude, when you're a kid and you're going out, because you know we did a couple family trips, like going out to threes and Kaiser and all, it was so far out.
It's a long ass.
You're
ride.
like, holy
It's
crap!
far.
Like, but as an adult, you're like, okay, it's far, but it's not like, you know, I used to 15 minutes, like it would take you, you know, like it's not that far. But
Yeah.
you know, again, everything's bigger and you know more grand and like you
Yeah,
know,
totally.
wild. But you'd see
There's
Hawaii.
so many good waves on the South Shore.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
When it's
unbelievable
lighting
amounts
up,
of surf.
you could go to 15 different spots.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But Alamana Bowls.
Yeah, we surfed Ala Moana a lot. We surfed threes a bit, and
no, Kaiser.
just kind of like,
Kaiser's was heavy. It was like kind of South Shore V-Land. Like it was
yeah,
gnarly crowd and
Yeah.
we kind of, my dad rode a longboard, and so he kind of liked the little bit like cruisier waves.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just remember like thinking the waves were insane. It was like the sickest place on earth.
Yeah.
No, warm and tropical
Yeah,
and
board
it's
shorts.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
So, when you said you were clicking, started to click, what was your boards? What were you riding then?
I remember I got this Jai Townend rode for Rusty. Jai was another friend like through high school, and
Yeah.
and we were about the same size, and he's like, hey, let me check out your board. I think I had a Jensen board. It worked great.
Excusez-moi.
And he had this Rusty that I caught a couple waves on. I was like, oh my god, this thing feels like it has a freaking motor on it. Like, what is going on here? It just felt glued to my feet.
And
I
it was
was
the right
just like,
size and dims.
yeah,
and
the
everything.
dims,
Like
everything
pretty-
just felt like, whoa, this is. I didn't even realize a board could do that much, you know. And then
Isn't
I
that
kinda started
a trip?
thinking, and I started just like trying some different stuff, and I got a word from Matt Violas like when I was kind of young, when I was maybe 19, that just was like,
Same thing.
it was magic, dude. I never felt a board that was my board, where I was like, dude, this board can like I can do
The
anything
mindset.
on this board.
Did you get it custom?
I got it custom. Yeah. I
Right.
started just getting some different stuff. I think Sean had he kind of lost his passion to shape a little bit or something maybe, and just kind of doing it for fun. But then at that point, I kind of was like, hey, I want to be a pro surfer. I'm 18 and I just graduated high school, and I was told myself okay, I'm gonna try this for a couple years and see what happens. And
Now, were you already sponsored by other people then?
at that point, yeah, I had Counterculture, and I think that the surf shop, maybe Kevin's shop, went out of business. So I pretty much had Counterculture. I might have had one other thing at the time. I don't remember what it would have been.
But you were in your head, you're going to be a pro surfer.
Yeah, I was I want to do this, and
And it's smart to try other boards.
Yeah, and so I got this board from Mayhem. I remember it was a Whiplash and it had red fins, and it just looked super cool. But I was like, dude, this thing goes faster than anything I've ever ridden. It turns on a dime. Everything about it was just the
Glass on fins?
yeah.
Yeah.
This was even dude, I don't even know if FCS and stuff was really that common.
Yeah.
But yeah, the board just went so good, and I started ordering boards from Matt, and I had this job too, and all my money went towards I had this little truck that got 100 miles to the gallon, and if you change the oil every 3 months, it was just gonna do its thing.
Yeah.
It was easy, little Toyota. And so I had that, which didn't take much money, and all my money I just went to boards. And at one point in time, dude, I had 80 surfboards in my dad's garage that some of them I rode 3 times, and I was it just didn't have the spark. Because once you get that board that does that, you're okay, I gotta find another board that does that.
Yeah.
It's hard to find. And so you just start going through boards oh, this one doesn't have it. It's a brand new, beautiful board, but it's going in the closet. Oh, here's another magic one. You just ride it till it looked the car ran over it,
Yeah.
But board, that's so important. Obviously, if you got the talent, you got the board.
The right shaper, you got to match with the right shaper sometimes.
And that's why I think a lot of people.
Not sometimes, but if you're going to be a pro
totally.
surfer,
Yeah.
you got to have the right combination.
Yeah, for sure.
And you could have 2 caliber surfers that are as good, and they both try the same shape, shapers, boards. One could love it, the other one's it doesn't work for me. There's so many little nuances to how you pair up with a particular shaper.
For
or,
sure.
you could get really technical on the model and shapes and all the other nonsense, but it's more
What also
you shouldn't have to force.
What also is a factor that shouldn't be a factor, but it is because you can't help it. Sean Jensen, no disrespect, great shaper, right? Rusty, who's a world-renowned shaper, who shaped for Aki, Taylor Knox. When you say these things and then you get on board and you said it, oh my God, I didn't know a board can do that.
Yeah.
Right? And you're holy shit, it's it's a Rusty.
Yeah.
Right?
And then Mayhem, then
and then you're
why these guys dominate the surfboard market.
Is there
Absolutely.
You got on the Rusty and you're fuck, I didn't know a board could do that. And then you get that Mayhem or Lost, you're holy shit, this thing's even better.
Yeah. I think at that time, by the time I got that board and I was 18, I had just started riding for Ruka, actually. Conan Hayes, I don't even know
I didn't
how,
know you rode for
but dude,
Ruka.
honestly, it was so weird. I want to say Conan Hayes got my phone number. This is early days of cell phones,
Yeah.
And I don't even know if anyone texted at the time. You just get calls, and so I got this call, and it was a weird number, and I answered it. It's hey, is Brandon there? Yeah, this is Conan Hayes, and I was Travis is playing a joke on me.
Yeah, right.
One of my friends, and I was just oh yeah, hey, what's up, Conan? And he's just, I can't even remember how the conversation went, but he's hey, I want to link up with you, and go surf. We have this company, Ruka, and I want you to check it out. They had just come out with the first few ads, and I think no one really knew how to say it. It was still RVCA, and it was oh, what is this?
Same,
but it was cool. Conan was this rad guy,
Yeah.
and
People still call it RVC.
And so I was like, all right, like.
Is this pre-LAR? No.
It was.
You were right.
It actually was.
Really?
Yeah, this is pre-LAR, everybody. I'm
I'm
pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. This is like Nathan Webster was still there, and like pre-Chucky
I was
being there.
before all those guys.
Yeah. Maybe you were.
Yeah.
I do remember one of the first things that Conan did was like after they like brought me in, dialed me in with gear and all this stuff, and I was just like, whoa, this is like surreal, you know? Like it was
So
one
did
thing.
he say let's surf first?
Yeah, we hung out. He met me. I don't even think we surfed. I think the waves were super bad, and he was just like, I'm not gonna surf, dude. And I was like, all right, yeah. Like, what are we gonna do? And we like had lunch, and he like brought me to Ruka. I was like, yeah, check it out. Like, this is our thing, and it was like right here. It was
Yeah.
like 1 or 2 streets over, and like
It was right across the street, wasn't it?
Sunset.
it might have been like right behind here.
Oh,
on one
yeah,
of these
yeah.
streets.
The two
in
story-
like a single story,
Oh,
small, like really small. And I went in there and was just like, you know, there's a couple desks and a cage with like all their inventory was in there.
Seamstress in the back. Kaitano.
Yeah, and like he introduced me to Pat, and I was like, oh hey man, what's up? Like, you know, I didn't know anything at that point. And I just was like, well, this is cool, and he like, gave me all this gear, and I was like, all right, sick. And he's just like, yeah, dude, like, you know, I've seen some stuff about you and heard about you, whatever, and like I want to get you on the team.
Yeah, because Jason Bogle was like their first like
Team
outside of Conan, like Jason Bogle was like
Yeah.
their, like first like sponsor like athlete.
Yeah, and I think at the time like Nathan Webster rode for him.
Noodles.
AKA Noodles.
Bogle,
Yeah.
Conan, obviously. But yeah, so I started riding for Ruka, and that felt like
A big deal.
that was a
Dude.
big deal.
Yeah.
Sure.
Counterculture was like one thing, but it felt still local because it was like local guys that started. You know, it
Yeah.
felt like this kind of smaller thing that was still rad, but that fell apart for some other reasons. I went through my little punk kid phase, and you know, I lost my sponsor for doing something really stupid.
What'd you do?
You know what I did.
Was it that time?
Yeah, it's that time.
For another podcast.
We won't bring that up.
We don't have to bring it up. All I have to say about that is that, hey, I've been shown a lot of grace in my life.
Yeah.
And that's one time that I was like, I thought my life was over.
Yeah.
Because I just did
People
something
make
really
mistakes,
stupid.
dude. Yeah.
And that was actually one thing that Conan said. He's like, yeah, I know you shred for counterculture and they let you go because this, and this. You know, everyone deserves a second chance. And I was like, whoa, okay, sick. Like, so I'm on. So I had no sponsor. and
Bad
then
boy,
Ruka
bad
came in,
boy.
and I was like,
So how
okay,
long
cool.
after that happened before Ruka picked you up?
Probably a year.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you went sponsorless for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
But you're ripping. You're like 18, 19?
Yeah, I was probably like 17 when I had no sponsor, and then at like around 18 was when Ruka picked me up.
Okay. And you're trying to be a pro surfer.
Yeah, and I was still in high school, and like Sean Ward kind of became my like daily buddy, my best friend. That
Sparring
were like
partner.
pick me up on the way to surf class. His dad lived over by my parents, and so he'd pick me up on the way to surf class. We'd go to surf class together, like go down to the comps together, all that stuff. So Sean was always like, it felt like he was one step ahead of me, and so I kind of was like riffing off him, like watching what he did and stuff too. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, cool, like he's on the right path. He rode for Billabong and Hurley and all that. So I was like, okay, he knows what's going on. And then Ruka picked me up, and Sean already had like hit the QS really hard. I felt like I wasn't really like ready to do that, like start traveling all over the world. And I was sort of finding my feet in like these, you know, HB Surf Series Pro-Ams and some of the like regional QS events like across the US and stuff like that, and like having some like mild success, maybe win a Surf Series Pro-Am against, you know, some pretty good local guys, if like Hoisington or Richie
Hoisington.
Collins sometimes would do it. He was already like a little bit older at that time, but still ripping super hard.
Yeah.
I don't remember you doing too many of them, Lar, but like D-Ball would show up once in a while.
Yeah.
Simpo, like, you know, Simpo was a little younger and he came up late. And then when he started doing some of those things too, it was like, oh shit, like this guy rips, you know? But yeah, just having fun with it, and I kind of maybe had like 2 years of that. And that's when the
So wait,
thought
were
kinda,
you pro for Ruka? Or just still am?
I was am. I remember it got down to a point where I was like, okay, if I really want to do this, like I gotta get paid. You know, I can't. My dad was like helping with entry fees, and I'm starting to like fly to Florida and like do the East. There's a tour of like 4 events that happen on the East Coast for a month, and I'd just like go to comp. Like then it was like, hey, I gotta
Couch
get a rental
surfing.
car, I gotta get a place to stay,
Yeah.
like all this stuff, and it started to just cost a lot of money, and I was like, dang, dude, like, you know, I want to like quit working at wherever I was working at the time. I think I was at Vaughn's, and then I was at HSS for a little while. I worked at Z Pizza, delivering pizzas, and like that was like
making ends meet.
the
Like,
most killer job though. Like just making tips, driving around all day, and like people hand you cash. I was like, this is easiest
Yeah.
money ever.
so rad.
But yeah, I did all that, and then finally I was like, dude, I want to not be spending my evenings delivering
Working.
pizza.
Yeah.
I want to spend my evenings surfing so I can get better, and I can start winning these contests and like making money. But in order to do that, I need gas money. I need blah blah.
Yeah, you need
So I
sponsors.
remember I like went to Pat Tenori, and I was kind of like, you know, money's always an awkward conversation whenever you talk to anybody.
Yeah.
But I was just like, hey, like, you know, how do I like get paid to do this or whatever? Pat's just, you know how Pat is. Like he's so busy, he has like a million ideas going on, and like, you know, I'm sure. I just kind of look back at it now, and I'm like, wow, for that guy to like take the time out of his schedule, and who was probably calling him, but he went, hey, let's go to dinner. And so he took me to dinner. We went to what's the little pasta Italian joint over on Harbor?
Pasta Connection?
No,
Yeah.
it's
Harbor?
is it on Harbor?
I don't know. That's what you said.
Yeah, there used to be like a little vintage shop right next to it. Anyways, we went to this spot and we just sat down there, I remember, and he's just like, what do you want to do? And like, what's your program and all this stuff? And so I told him, because all my conversations were pretty much with Conan up until that point. And I think Conan was like, I don't know, he was away or something, but Pat wanted just to hear it from me. So I was telling him like, yeah, I want to be a pro surfer. Like, you know, I don't really need very much. I just need enough to like pay for my gas and surf, and like I want to quit doing this job that I have so I can just focus on surfing.
Yeah.
And you know, I only have a couple of years to like really give it a crack, or else I'm gonna get too old. And
Can I stop you for a second here? So, how many conversations have you had with Pat before?
you know, Pat was always really cool whenever we'd go in to the office, and it was so small at the time that like
Yeah.
you couldn't not see someone there.
Yeah.
So he would always like stop and say hello.
Yeah.
But he was
Not-
just this
not-
like intimidating guy, and like
That's
I never
what-
like sat down and had a
Yeah,
one-on-one
he's
with Pat
gnarly,
Tenori, really.
right?
Yeah.
He's gnarly. Okay.
Yeah, and House of Pizza. That's the place we
Okay.
went to. Yeah, we went to House of Pizza.
But for him to like go, hey, let's go to dinner.
Yeah, he
is
went, let's
pretty
go to
big.
dinner. And
It's a big-
even that, I was like,
Kind of a big deal.
I was kind of scared,
Yeah.
like, oh god, like this guy's gonna go to dinner with me? What do I do? You know, like I don't have any paper like prepared. I should have like a presentation. But
Where's your
but
deck,
it was just
bro?
cool. We sat there and we just rapped, and he's like, what would it take? And I was like, I don't know, like $500 a month, you know? And he was just like, okay. And like the next day, he's like, come by Ruka, and like I went by Ruka, and I think he cut me a check that day, and was just like, cool, you know, just remind me every day on this day of the month, like, and I'll write you a check. And I was
Wow.
like, whoa, okay.
That's kind of a big deal.
I like, couldn't believe it. Like I had no contract or nothing, but like,
I mean, for a young, small brand
Brand.
that, you know, like, it's, yeah, like, resources are limited and money's tight, and to be able to, like, stoke out, you know, a
Yeah.
young local ripper and do that is
Because
huge.
you're talking like at the early stages of Ruka too. And, you know, like you guys are saying, there's only a handful of team riders really.
I only remember Conan
Yeah.
and Jason Bogle, really, like.
And Noodles.
Well,
But Noodles,
Noodles,
was
yeah.
Noodles.
Yeah. I think
I mean,
right
Noodles
around
was
that-
working his angle of trying to be the
Distributor.
yeah, the Australian distributor.
Yeah.
Like that was it. You know, he wasn't really a, you know, him and Conan at that time were kind of like trying to do their, you know, transitions or whatever. Conan
Yeah.
had a knee injury, and he's like, I'm gonna rehab and I'm gonna go back out and try to requalify. You know, so the first couple years that I was what the brand is like. Conan wasn't there a lot because he was trying to like, you know, he had a knee injury, came off of it, then he was trying to like go back and re-qualify, and yeah, but it was so small.
Yeah.
You know, like at the times you're speaking of on 16th Street, and
Yeah.
you know, we had we always talk about how food and how low budget we are. There was a catering business next door, and they fed us like every day. We trade product, and like the only way we got food was they had big events and they're catering, and they'd be like, "Hey, here's
So
Yeah.
your first pro paid check was from Ruka.
Yeah.
it's so epic."
Yeah.
Fucking awesome.
Yeah. Pat Tenori wrote me a check. My first one ever as a surfer. Yeah, I was tripping. I still like thinking back on it now, like
I thought you were going to tell me he's going to say, instead of being a pro surfer, you should come work here.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so I mean, to bring up them, Conan and Patton at the time, like, you know, I think we were surfing Southside, and like Conan like was telling Lyndon like, yeah, you should come be our rep. You know, like
Yeah.
Lyndon was going to be the rep, and Lyndon's like,
Lord, can I do
he's
this?
like, hey, you know, like, what do you think about being a rep? And I was like, well, you know, like, I don't know, young Baron might be hard because he's got the not a cush job, but he's making good money. Like cush job.
Yeah.
He lives 4 blocks from HSS, and you know, like he's got a good. I'm like, I don't know, it's gonna be tough, new brand, and I mean, all of a bunch of other friends were already reps, and
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, I don't know, it could be tough.
I was burnt out at working at HSS, right?
Yeah.
I was there for 12 something years.
Yep.
And Laura was actually team manager you were starting to be team manager
Yeah, so
for Ruka.
So I was kind of making the transition too, where I was like, I was Stussy, which was my main sponsor, like, look, we're gonna phase you out, like we're gonna start like kind of getting out of the surf, you know, market, you know, we're just, you're not fired, but hey, just
Start
start looking.
There's an end.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I had friends at Stussy, and I'm like, well, I love this brand, like I want to find a place here, you know, after, you know, my career after surfing, and it just wasn't. I just knew writing on the wall wasn't going to work out. And then Conan was like, "Come work for us," and I'm like, "I got to make money, like, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, like, here's my lifestyle, and I'm okay to, I could take a hit, and you know,
I drive a lowered Beamer, bro.
well, yeah, but yeah, and it just was like, you know, I knew Pat from a long time, I knew Conan from a long time, and I just thought like, well, I could go be a sub rep for, you know, Paul Harvey or Lockie or some of these other guys that, you know, Dean Quint, you know, somebody that like, hey, we take you under our wing and like, you know, groom you, or, you know, I could go work for Ruka, and, you know, at the time it's like, well, I'll do whatever. There was no like, I'm gonna do this job, I'm not gonna, you know, it was kind of like sales. There wasn't really a sales team. We had like a sales manager, and he was trying to hire reps in other areas, and you know, I'm like, well, you know, I was the little bitch boy for a while.
So my story with Ruka.
I remember you had to take me to Trestles one day. You didn't have to, but
Yeah.
I think Conan teed it up. He's like, hey, Jay Larson's gonna be here too now, so
Yeah.
you know Jay, right? Like, and you took me down to Lowers one day.
How funny.
I was like, oh shit.
So the day that Conan called me to be the rep is the day I got my offer letter from DDS, and I took a pay cut from working from HSS to going to DDS, like a $30,000 pay cut, right? And at the time, I was like, gosh, you know, I want to work for Ruka, right? Like it's a new brand,
Yeah.
and Lars like, I'm living with Lars.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, you're not gonna make money for like 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, you're not gonna make money for who knows how long.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, what? He's like, yeah, because you know you're a sales rep, you're on commission.
Yeah. You gotta.
And I'm like, I'll take this job.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was just like, dude, I mean, I was skeptical about like how to make ends meet, you know, and I had other sponsors, and it was just like, you know what? I just, at the end of the day, I was like, this is an intern. I looked at it as an internship. You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what?
But this show is not about
No,
you.
but it's about, you know, yeah, the Ruka, you know, connection here, and
So
we all have it.
you
Yeah.
get your $500 a month.
Yeah, so I had this little sweet deal going with Ruka for a little while that was really rad, and
And you're riding Mayhems.
I was riding Mayhems, and I was just surfing a bunch and competing quite a bit. Like I said, like I did okay in a few things that I did. I never went like on the big stage. I never went to Brazil to compete in the QS and do that. I was just like US tour, and you know, would get a few results here and there, but nothing crazy. And then anyway, I got to a point where I was just like, man, I can't live on like $500 a month, you know, like where's my path going, you know? And I sort of started thinking about it, and I remember in high school I had this rad teacher, Mr. Peach. He was my algebra teacher.
Gotta have good peeps.
And I just remember it made me like, I failed algebra. I got an F the year before, and I had to take algebra again, and then I got Mr. Peach this year. And Mr. Peach, he just was like this cool guy that, I don't know, he just like helped me understand it. There's something clicked for me, you know? And I just remember thinking like, he felt like he was one of us students, like just a cool teacher. And I just thought how cool that was. Like, hey, he had such a positive impact on my life, because he like helped me understand and like steer me in the right direction. And I was like, oh, being a teacher would be kind of sick. I kind of looked at what Verdone does and was like,
good money,
dude,
great hours, you're giving back, you're feeling, you know.
yeah, like I love working with kids. I love surfing. Verdone, like what if Verdone retires one day and I could like become the surf coach at Huntington High?
I don't think Verdone's ever going to
And then there's like, you know, every summer Verdone would take a trip with the kids. Like, I don't know if he still does it, but you know, we got to go to Ireland with him, and it was pretty
South
sick.
Africa, Australia.
Yeah, there's all these crazy trips. So I'm like, man, he has summers off. Like, dude, being a teacher is an insane job. So I kind of started thinking about that, and I was like, I always like numbers.
Were you good in school? Like,
yeah, I was pretty good when I tried. You know, I had 1 year in high school where I probably just like got on the sauce. We started puffing a little Chiba too much and whatever, got by.
Yeah.
But then after that, like my senior year of high school, I was getting like straight A's and, you know, pretty good student. But yeah, so my head shifted of like, okay, I don't want to be the guy hanging on to try and become a pro surfer. I want to be like maybe a teacher, or like doing something like making sure I have surfing close to me, that I can like do it for a long time, and not just like get some grindy job where I'm like, you know, my dad, like I always kind of looked at him too, like he didn't like what he did. He worked in like the city of Carson or something, would drive to work at 5 a.m. and like get home at like 7 p.m. or something like that. And it was just like sundown. And I'm like, dang, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I sort of had these like couple ideas in mind, and the number one was to become a teacher. So I started like going to Golden West College and just like trying to make my way towards like, okay, this is gonna be a long road, but here's what I'm doing. You know? Yeah. And kind of around that time is when, I guess, maybe like Ruka started to grow and expand, and like, I don't know, I just sort of like found myself like not fitting in there, and like kind of, you know, was like, I think at one point they're like, hey man, we can't keep doing this with you, whatever, and I sort of like, you know, wasn't on the team anymore, and it was all good. I was still going to college, and I had a part-time job, and I was still competing a lot because I loved it, you know, and randomly I made friends with this girl, and her dad was Bill Hurley. And so we became like really good friends. My friend ended up dating her, and we were just all super close for a little while. And so Bill would always ask like, Brandon, what are you up to? You know, and I'm like, oh, just, you know, working, like doing this, blah, 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 going to school. And he's like, you're not sponsored? Like, what? You know, you should meet Jeff. And I already knew Jeff Hurley, because Jeff would surf in the contest at the HB Surf Series. So Jeff is Bob's son.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, Jeff runs the team at Hurley. Like, I'm gonna put you guys in touch. And so I started talking to Jeff Hurley, and Jeff was, I remember there was a contest, the Coldwater Classic actually was happening in Santa Cruz, and he's like, hey, are you gonna be up there? I said, yeah, I'm gonna go do the contest. So he's like, well,
Did you have a sponsor?
No, I had no sponsor.
So you're paying for everything
yeah,
yourself?
I was paying for everything myself, and I was still riding the Mayhems and stuff. we went up there and he's like, hey, we're gonna go to this concert. Paul Gomez, who was Jeff's boss, did a lot of stuff with the Used. And so Jeff invited me to go to this concert with the Used in Santa Cruz, like during the contest. And I was like, well, this is insane. Micah Byrne rode for Hurley, and Micah was like staying with Jeff, hanging with him, and we were already good buddies at that point. And he's like, hey, dude, I think Jeff's gonna like offer you a job. And I was like, what kind of job? Like, I have a job.
Who told you that?
Micah Byrne.
Oh, really?
And Jeff didn't want to be like traveling. He had a family. What was the reason?
Yeah, I mean,
He
it was
just
like,
kinda
it was super early days. Like, I don't even think Jeff traveled too much.
Yeah.
You know,
So he
he
needed
was just
somebody
like,
else.
hey, we have a lot of stuff going on, and
Yeah.
a really small, like, internal team of people.
Yeah.
We just need a helping hand. And I think probably at that point, like, it was almost just like, hey, Bill said this kid's cool and rad, and
How
let's
fucking
throw him a bone.
funny, right?
Yeah, so Jeff offered me that gig of like, hey, we need someone that's gonna help me like ship out boxes once a week, and if you can go down to these contests on the weekends where the kids compete, and just kind of like
eyes and ears.
throw some high fives.
That's what I like
whatever.
about-
So like an assistant team manager.
Yeah, so like kind of team manager. And I was like, dude, this is perfect. Like, I love working with kids. I love surfing. And I'm going to work for Hurley. Like, whoa, insane. And so it was super light. Like, he
at
kind
that
of
time-
sponsored me. He's like, we'll sponsor you. Here's what we'll pay you. And you just work this one day a week, shipping packages out to the team. And then you got to go to these NSSAs on the
How much
weekends.
was it?
I think at that time he was giving me like $1,000 a month. So I was like,
Doubled your salary.
yeah, the Ruka thing ended and I was bummed, but then I was like, dude, this thing like fell in my lap. It felt like, you know,
Yeah.
and it just felt like
And you're the perfect-
serendipitous of it.
And you're the perfect guy who's still young, still rips, has a pulse, and that's what most brands need is somebody that has.
What are you,
that's-
19?
Yeah, I was 21
Oh,
actually.
But to be coming from like the Hurley family, like old school, like what they, what the, how
I
the
love
marketing
it.
and the surf,
I love the Hurley family.
for sure.
They're fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Great
but
people.
but
Yeah.
just they know the importance of being visible and having that like ground floor like ROM like support and
Yeah.
sponsorship and like
So,
Yeah.
okay.
again Jeff's it's above his pay grade or he's above the pay grade he's like
Yeah.
I don't I'm not going to the weekend.
Man, when I
We need to
started
find
working
somebody.
there, it was I think there was like 5 people that worked in marketing.
Yeah.
Paul Gomez ran the show. Jeff Hurley worked for Paul. Pete Rocky worked there,
Pete Rocky.
doing like the internet, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like at the time what they called it. Lindsay Roach worked there. Greg Teal worked there, and dude, there might have been like one other person in our marketing building. Julie Leffler. That was Ryan Sirianni.
Yes.
That was it. That was our.
Sirianni
that was our
worked
group.
for Hurley too?
Oh, he worked there a long time. Yeah.
Okay.
Rod Stewart.
Ah,
He's the man. But yeah, dude, that was our whole crew. And
So was this after Nike bought him?
Nike had bought Hurley maybe like a year prior to that.
Okay.
In
But-
2000 did they buy it for?
Yeah.
No, 2000. They started in 1999.
3 years.
Sold in 2 years.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 2002 or 2003.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I
They
guess it was
sold.
like
They
So I
sold
think-
within 2 years.
I think they owned the brand for a little over a year, something like that,
Yeah.
before I started. And when I started, and even for the first like 5 or 6 years, until that transition came with like, hey, we're gonna try and sign John, and we need help to pull the funds, and then they say, okay, we'll do it. And by the way, we're gonna not do Nike surfing, and you guys are gonna take all these assets. We're gonna help you financially, like build a business big enough to
Yeah.
afford this.
But you were there way before that all
Yeah,
happened.
so there wasn't much involvement from Nike other than like, I think Bob would probably report in like
Yeah.
once a year, like, hey, here's our numbers.
They saw
here's
it,
what we're
just
doing.
kind of
So
blow it up.
2000
It was like let us do our thing for a while.
Yeah.
You said what, 2003 you were, that's when you started?
Yeah, I think it was 2003. I know I was 21. I remember I was 21 years old. Yeah,
Crazy.
whatever that was. Yeah, it was insane, dude. It was a dream gig for sure.
Did you quit school?
You know, I stayed in school for a while, and then it's funny, man, looking back on it. So the kids that were on the team at the time were Dylan Carrillo. He was probably like the best kid we had in California. Who was like every weekend I'd see Dylan at the contest, and then I started like seeing all these other kids, and I'm like, oh, this kid's good. He's from San Clemente. Like, we need a little kid from San Clemente. Like, okay, let's get him, Ian Crane. Like,
Wow.
oh, this kid's from Santa Barbara. He's pretty good. Like, oh, he's got a brother too. Like Parker Coffin, Connor Coffin. Like, okay, snatch all these kids. You know, Kai Barger from Hawaii is just like insane, dude. Like, I mean, still rips.
Yeah.
Keiko Casemiro. Like,
I mean, how great of a job is, because you were in those kids' shoes not too long ago.
yeah.
And here you are, you're now calling the shots, or at least helping like get that, and you're like now just stoking out these kids beyond,
Yeah.
you know,
No, it was.
like that, you know, it's full circle on like where you were at, trying to go through the sponsorship and
Yeah,
this and that,
totally.
and now you're the scout and guy responsible of putting these guys,
Yeah,
logos on board.
and honestly, like Jeff was so easygoing.
Yeah.
It was just like, hey, like whatever you think we should do, let's do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right,
The apple didn't fall too far from the tree.
yeah,
From Bob to Jeff.
yeah,
to Ryan.
absolutely,
Right?
yeah,
It's
yeah. And I didn't get to work closely with Ryan until later on, but those first few years, like working with Jeff and being close to like him and Pete Rock, who was a good friend of his, and like working with Paul Gomez.
What does Pete do? Marketing too?
Yeah, he was in marketing and he worked on the website. You know, that was like early days of like websites.
Yeah.
Kind of, there was no e-commerce happening. It was just like a blog
Yeah.
essentially, but like really hard to use, and like
Yeah.
you just knew how to like do it.
Yeah.
But Pete was always down for everything, dude. We had like these Rip My Shred Stick summer tours, and Pete would just go, hey, I'll drive the bus, and like I'll help set up and stuff. And dude, it was some of the most fun, crazy, wild times I ever had.
Yeah.
Just like pure, like good, clean fun. Like jump on a bus with these dudes for a month and like
Yeah.
travel around the U.S.
That was their slogan too,
events.
right? Pure, good, clean fun.
Rip My Shred Stick, yeah, have fun. Yeah.
It's so funny. I look back to like that timeline, and so as the my Stussy gig was kind of coming to an end, I was like, well, I'm gonna do this. Actually, Hurley just kind of was like just started before like Nike bought it. And I was like, hey, Bob, Jeff, you know, like I'd be stoked to be your HB like ambassador and find a role after.
Yeah.
They passed.
They did. So I go.
Or
I
that
got,
Micah there who was like,
No,
hot
oh,
shot
yeah.
coming up.
So I was like, you know, I knew I was like, hey, I want to find a path after surfing, but
Yeah.
I still have the ability to surf, you know. And so I had a meeting with Bob and Jeff,
Bob.
and and then I do a follow up meeting. It's just Jeff, and I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, where's everybody? He's like, yeah, we're gonna pass. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, like why, you know?
That's so Jeff.
He's
like,
all,
the
we
meeting
don't-
went just like that.
He's all, we just don't really get the whole late night thing.
Oh, you told me this.
They thought I was like just like some
Party animal.
like, and I'm like, did you talk to any like anybody like references, like do you know who I am, like? And I was like, hey, I get it, whatever. But I got
Jay, you making
Yeah.
this up? Is this
no,
true
you can ask
story?
Jeff. I hope he remembers. I thought it was pretty.
I bet he
We
would.
don't get the late night thing. That's what he said.
That was what he said.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like, hey,
I
cool.
could picture Jeff saying like,
You know, because
verbatim.
I guess, you know, again, you know,
He's always making it about him.
no.
I know, dude.
This is all.
So Jay, tell us.
This
more
is all about the web of.
Hey,
like-
enough of you talking about me. Let's hear me talk about me.
Me. Yeah.
So
Oh,
how
gosh.
were you here when he said how he met or how he got the job? So he was hanging out with Bill Hurley's daughter.
Ooh.
His friend was dating his daughter, and Bill said, "Oh, you should talk to Jeff."
Yeah.
But how weird is that? Like,
Yeah, and it just at the time, you know, when I was kind of going like, oh, teacher thing, like it was really like I love working around kids, and I
Yeah.
love surfing, and I can have summers off, and
Yeah.
teacher sounds like it's good. I can be a positive influence on these young people. And that's what I want to do with my life.
Well,
you know?
yeah, you're making a huge.
And when Jeff came to me with like, hey, we want you to spend more time at the beach. We still want you to surf and be a pro surfer and do your thing. And we'll actually help pay for you to get to these things. But we also want you to like be around these young kids and like help them. And so I was like,
I mean,
that's just like ticked all the boxes.
What a great opportunity for you, but for them it's a double whammy as well because they're supporting you on your ambitions to be a pro surfer, and who knows, maybe it does take off, but yet they're pretty much paying you the same to do both.
How many times?
Yes.
Right? Like
Yeah.
to kind of build an amateur youth team and
For sure.
and then but they're still giving you the money and the funds to kind of pursue your dream.
Yeah. And I think Jeff sort of like
But that worked
saw
out.
the writing on the wall for me too, maybe. And was like, hey, Brandon's like a good surfer. He's probably
Yeah.
not gonna like be on the tour one day and like be some, world renowned guy. But we like him and he can help us.
And as a business owner,
we'll help
you
him
need-
like have fun while he's young
But
and
how
get
many
out there and do it.
times, Gilly, did you take down one of your team riders in the heat?
Gosh, man. No, I'm saying gosh, man. I wish I could remember.
Yeah,
but-
because
I've
bet for
heard.
sure.
We've heard it.
Yeah, bet for
There
sure.
might be like a couple like smaller things, but I
Uh-huh.
never did the paddle like beating Brett at sunset when he just needed that one heat to be on tour. That was a big one. That was funny.
For
But
who?
it happened, right?
It was funny because Brett got on tour
Yeah.
the next year, and
I
it was
know.
like he's
You gotta
Brett's
prove it.
great.
You can't. I would hope in looking back, you would want to not.
Absolutely.
You want him to earn it
Yeah.
and not have like, oh, he's on tour because you got. Like,
Yeah, Brett
like,
says the same thing.
it's-
Pat says the
yeah,
same
for
thing.
sure.
and It's like
You
it's all
can't-
good. It worked
So-
out the way it was supposed to.
So
You're
how,
lying.
okay, so you get this job. You're team rider / team manager,
Yeah.
and you start going to all the venues.
Well, at first I'm just going to like up and down the coast of California.
Yeah.
Going to all these kids events and stuff, and it only turned into like overseas when Dylan Perillo got like really good. He won the nationals, and he was kind of like the it kid for a minute. You
Yeah.
know? Connor was like, I think the same year maybe Connor won the juniors or no, the boys. He was like in the little grounds.
Yeah.
But he was still really young and like getting way better real fast. But Dylan was like
So
just
good.
like 15, 16.
Surfer
He got
man.
invited to go to the World Junior Championships. And I want to say that it like coincided with like I was applying for my classes for the next semester, and I was like, dang man, that's right when school starts. Like that's critical to like if I miss that, like it's a big deal. I can't miss that. But he was like, hey, I really want you to go with me. Can you go to Australia with me and do
Yeah.
this? And I
Well,
was like,
sorry to interrupt you. You form bonds with these kids, and they get stoked that you're on their team and helping them. You know.
yeah. I mean, I'm
You're
spending
basically
every
almost like
weekend with Dylan down at the beach.
And you're coaching.
His dad and
Right?
and coaching, and like a lot of those guys that are like Dylan was really good, and he knew what to do, but it's just always like affirming what they already know.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like
You're in
yep,
their corner.
You're right
Yeah.
there, dude. That's what you do. You do
Yeah.
that turn that you do that.
Yeah.
And you're
Where
good
should
at
I
it.
sit?
Just kind of giving
That's
them.
where you sat before,
Yeah.
right? That's where you
And
got
if
that
I've been
way.
watching the waves, I'm like, where do you think you should sit?
Yeah.
I mean, right there. That's exactly where you should sit.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. No, but yeah, I got to form bonds with all these rad young kids, and so Dylan was the one first that was like, hey, I want you to go to Australia with me, like for this World Junior Championships. Can you go? And right after the World
Dylan
Juniors,
reached out to you and said, "You
Yeah.
need to go with me."
and right after that event, there was this Hurley junior pro at Burley, and I asked Jeff like, hey, would we want to send Dylan for this thing? Maybe by this time, actually, Jeff had moved on to a new gig, and Pato just started working there. Yeah, because Pato became my boss like not long after I started. Maybe I was a year in, and so Pat just came off tour. He was like finding his groove and like what we were doing, and he was just so supportive of like everything I was doing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, we're gonna sponsor this event. Like, Dylan should go there. He's the best kid in the U.S. Like, it'd be rad to send one of our best, to go over there. And he's like, okay, like you gotta be there too.
Yeah.
And
Have you been to Australia since?
I had never been to Australia before that,
Yeah.
and I was like
frothing.
yeah, dude, like, I'm rocking to go to Australia, but this means no school.
Sign up.
And so I kind of was like, you know
Yeah.
what? College is going to be there. I may never get the chance to do this thing.
Yeah. You can always
So,
take a few more classes later and
Yeah.
kind of slow roll it out.
You're at a fork in the road.
yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
at this fork in the road, and it was kind of a struggle to come up with it for a minute with the answer, even though I knew in my gut right away. I was like,
Yeah.
dude, this is once in a lifetime. I'm doing this.
You don't have to
It's
sell
kind
it
of like-
to them, right?
No, it was kind of like convince my dad that this is a good idea,
Yeah.
whatever. And my dad already was like really supportive, and just everything I ever got from surfing.
Yeah.
When I came home with a check
Yeah.
from Bruca, he was like, "How did you do that?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't even know."
Take it from a guy like me, like is your dad, that grew up inland, you know, that never
Getting paid to surf.
dude, like the opportunities that he gave you and you ran with it, you know,
Yeah.
and you're reaping the rewards. That's what a parent wants to do, is give you an opportunity to reap the rewards that he wants for you,
Yeah.
right? And here you are, like, was he ever sponsored? Would he ever want to be sponsored, kid? Hell fucking yeah.
Yeah.
And you did that.
Yeah,
You know?
I think my dad would get concerned sometimes, because it's like, you know, he had me really young, and I have an older brother, and so he was kind of like strapped and just like,
Yeah.
I got to get this job, and here's how much I can make, and that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And he grinded it out for a long time. He hated it. He hated what he did.
Yeah.
And so,
Which a lot of parents.
yeah, you get in that situation.
But
that's
you
what
do what you do to support
Yeah.
and give the best.
And so for me, and he didn't go to college, and my stepmom did, and she had a great job, and she made great money, and she like, you know, liked more or less what she was doing. And so I think my dad just always was like, yeah, college, like teacher, like, you should,
Yeah.
Brandon, that's great. Like, you know, so I think for me to explain to him, like, hey, I'm not gonna go to school this semester, maybe it was like a little bit tricky, but I think my dad was just very like, hey man, you've already done way more of this than I ever thought you could, like,
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah.
And so I did it. I went to Australia. I don't remember how Dylan did in the event, but I think Dylan made a couple heats at that event, and then we went to the Burley one, where I met some of the Hurley Australia people there, and like became really good friends, like some of my best friends that I have to this day. Mitch Ross was there, and then he kind of brought in this other guy, Mitch Tomlinson, that do Life Without Andy. This it's like this pop culture website.
Yeah.
That was super cool. So anyways, I became good friends with those guys, and they would start coming over and staying at my house like all the time in Huntington. And yeah, it was just like an unreal experience going to Australia and surfing all those waves at Snapper and Kira. And Kira was like not even breaking it anymore at that point, but D-Ba and Snapper and Burley.
Surface paradise.
Yeah.
You're doing what we always talk about, is mixing business with pleasure.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
it-
like,
yeah,
are you fucking kidding me?
It didn't feel like it was real ever, you know, and
And it's not like you're in your unknown. You're just like, hey, I gotta get this kid, Dylan. I gotta get to the event. I gotta make sure he's comfortable, and hopefully he does well. I'm gonna help him do, you know, like, it's everything you're already comfortable with, like going through your own competitive surfing, and you know, like, so you got the best of both worlds. You
Yeah.
know, like you're just kind of like,
yeah,
I'm doing what he's doing, but I don't have to put a jersey on.
yeah, I have
and I'm
less
experiencing
pressure.
all the same
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, it was rad. I
pressure.
kind of had that mindset a little too, of like, this is the best it can be. Like, I don't have to win something.
Yeah.
I just got to be here for this kid and make sure he's all right.
And what's crazy too,
Fun.
Gilly, like when you first got this job, and the idea for Jeff was to alleviate what Jeff was doing, right? You were going to help support Jeff in managing the team and packing boxes and sending orders out, right?
Yeah.
Doing grunt work,
And then
right?
show up to surf events.
And show up to surf events. But pretty quickly, your job got elevated.
Yeah, I'd say like a year or 2 years in was that first big trip.
Yeah.
Where I was like, whoa, this is insane. And I mean, you know, my my 1 day a week for Jeff at one point in time was they're like, hey, we're gonna do this summer tour of the Shred Stick thing, and it was like dude, I don't even think I know I didn't have a license to drive this big RV thing we were doing, but like I did, and driving it like across country with my old roommate Max and Pete Rocky, and just setting up these events with Saxon Boucher and like Rob Machado would jump on the bus, Timmy Curran, and Yaden, Pato.
Gosh.
And like, so doing all those like promotional events too,
yeah.
I kind of got like, in a couple of years, because our team was so small, I got a chance to like get my hands on so many different like facets of the brand.
Yeah.
Of like, okay, I know how to like ship stuff, like whatever, it's kind of mindless work. But then going on the road and like scheduling out like, okay, we need to be at this place at that time.
Hey, you went to a different school.
This. Yeah.
You didn't go to college, you just went to a different school.
Yeah, totally.
But like reaching out, okay, here's the retailers around, we gotta make sure they know about it, we gotta have posters, we gotta have, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah,
of, like,
there was no
successful-
Instagram.
Yeah.
It was like you needed foot soldiers. Like, hey, I'm gonna go tape posters to every sign in town. Like, get the tape guns, like sticking them on there.
Guerrilla marketing.
Guerrilla marketing. Yeah. Paul
We need
Gomez
that.
made us do that a lot. Paul Gomez made us do a lot of funny stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of it was insane, and some was like genius. You know.
Yeah.
So fun. I learned a lot of cool lessons from Paul. But the best one ever was, I remember the waves were really good one day, and we were all at work. And he's just like, "What are you guys doing here?" And we're like, "We're working." And he's just like, "Well, if you don't go surf right now, you're all fired. Like, that's why we work here. Like, get out of here." And just like forced us out the door. He's just like, all this stuff can wait. Like, the waves are good. Like, go now. And we're like,
Well,
You
right.
gotta
again,
have
you're
people
the
like that.
boss.
It's the surf industry.
yeah.
Well,
it was so different.
The old
you know,
school
it's so
surf
different.
industry.
Yeah.
You know? But also, we're in a very competitive hub. And they want all the Hurley people out in the lineup, you know, because you know other brands are, there's other people,
So-
but you know what I mean? It's always competitive in the store, at the events, all this, and it's still competitive, like at your local break, like getting the people, the heads out there ripping.
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
Here's
Right?
the
Yeah, absolutely.
okay. The yin and yang, the good and bad, the positive, the negative of Nike in our world.
Yeah.
Right? Like Hurley benefited so much with the power of Nike, right? And you, like, what's crazy is I hate it because they created a vacuum, right? Like of expectation, you know, like
Yeah.
But the thing that I want to really talk about is how Nike couldn't have, or Hurley couldn't have done some of the things they did without Nike,
Those resources.
Yeah.
right? Without the money, without the marketing power.
Yeah.
But you guys, like, you were the architects and executors of
For
the
sure.
marketing and the plan.
Yeah, Nike didn't come
What-
in.
Well,
They gave
the
you the
interesting
funds,
thing that-
but you fucking you guys made it happen.
Well,
Yeah.
the formula was there before Nike, and they stuck to the
Right.
formula after Nike.
Right.
It just helped, like you said.
Yeah. So
They upped the ante. Like,
Yeah.
what? I mean, you were there when Hurley took over on U.S. Open.
yeah, the heydays.
Well,
Holy
even that, and
yeah.
the lowers pro, and then Bob's like,
Yeah.
or I don't know if it's Bob,
Yeah,
but they're
let's-
like, let's give a
they
gold
should
skate.
They should.
You
They
know?
should get paid way more. Surfers shouldn't get paid.
Let's
30
have,
grand.
like, yeah,
They got
let's
that
have,
20
like-
years ago.
Let's have
I'm
lockers.
gonna give them 75, and just like right before the final paddle,
When
just
Bob
decided
that was
to do that.
that was
Well, they're
simple,
the ones
right?
that said, "Let's do a locker."
That was the
room,"
one
right?
where it was
Well, I think we upped the money
Before?
first for
the previous
US
year.
Open.
Yeah.
Or no, you know what it was? Kelly versus Taj. They're paddling out for the final.
That was
and
it.
Bob said, "Hey, surfers got paid this amount, like whatever it was, 20 years ago."
We got 100 grand. for winning.
No, it went to 75.
Oh, okay.
Like, I'm gonna make it 75 grand to whoever wins this final, and
That's
we're gonna
so
add
bad.
10 minutes more on the clock. And Taj went, no, I don't want Kelly in the water for 10 more minutes. And then it ended up like, I don't know if they flipped a coin or whatever, but like a lot of people were, yeah, let's do it, 10 more minutes. 10 more minutes, Kelly wins,
Sorry.
$75,000. The next year, I
don't
think we did
How about you?
$100,000.
You're in the heat after I get a good one.
Yeah,
Hey, let's add 10 minutes, but Kelly only gets 4 wins.
yeah.
That's the only way I'm gonna win.
Hey,
Can we blindfold him?
yeah. I don't think it would help.
Yeah, so I think, and then maybe the next year it was that we did U.S. Open and
Yeah.
upped it to $100,000, and then the following year was like, hey, this is Hurley Pro Trestles.
Yeah.
This should be $100,000 if that's $100,000.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, let's do it.
But just, I mean,
But yeah, that was.
but like you said,
that's a
there's
lot.
money, but there's also like a lot of like factors that money can help. You know, the locker rooms. You know,
Yeah.
like the better conditions for the the athletes and the spectators, and making it like just elevating everything.
Yeah, everything about it. I mean, before Nike got really involved in Hurley, we had this small marketing team, and we had like finite resources of money.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, dude, I think I want to say our total like marketing budget back then was like $200,000, and like on top of that, we probably had like some athlete salaries that didn't come out of that, but it was like, dude, that's for the
For
year.
events and
And
marketing.
we sponsored Warped Tour. We did all this like insane girls, like young contemporary they called it at the time. Like
Yeah.
we did insane stuff with our women's business, and then all the surf stuff. Ripped my shred sticks, like tours across the U.S. for the summer. Like that's $50,000 right there. So we all had to hold hands and go, hey, is this the best thing for the business? Like, let's agree on this and do it. And it felt like we had so much momentum because our team was the nucleus was tight. We just all were like, yeah, when your event's coming up, I'm going to be there and I'm going to help you with whatever you need. And then once we kind of like had the influx of cash where it was just literally like, we're the same people, and they just went, hey, here's like millions of dollars to do whatever you want.
Let's add 2 zeros to that.
And then,
Yeah.
like, Roger Wyatt, he's like one of our amazing leaders that came down from Nike to help us like kind of get the brand to that next level. And Roger was the one that went to like Pat O, and I might even been there, and he's like, hey, we should sponsor the US Open. And like, I think maybe he saw like the OP Pro and what it once was. And then the US Open at the time was just this like tchotchke, like hodgepodge of junk, it was like not sexy at all. None of the best surfers in the world came.
Yeah.
It was like it was a regional event at best.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in
It
the
turned
heyday,
into a trade show on the beach.
But not of good things that you would want.
Right.
It was like
Chicks getting
like-
their butts signed and all that.
yeah, and just like random like stickers and keychains and just trash.
Yeah.
yeah, you wait
So-
from taking over the town.
Yeah, and I think what was really amazing from Nike is obviously like, hey, the funds were great. That was obviously like access to a lot. But then there was like a guy like Roger who basically he was the reason that Nike started doing soccer. He like brought all their bigwigs to a game and went, look at this. We don't even play in this world. Like
The
I think he
biggest
gave
sport
him
in the
like
world.
I think he took him up to the Christ statue, gave a big speech them up there, and like it sounds like rad,
Yeah.
super Roger, and so they went into soccer, and it's they're huge, and so he has this like vision of like, no, this could be amazing, and we can dominate this, and I couldn't see it. Like I grew up going to that contest, and like, dude, that thing's like an eyesore when it comes to town. I'm like, not into it.
Trust me.
Pato was the same. We're just like,
I did
dude,
12
don't
years
know.
of that, just being so like, ugh.
Yeah,
Like, when is this over?
yeah.
Wait, you're gonna add another week to it? Fuck.
So we brought in. Did you guys ever meet Jeb Siqueiros?
I heard
General
your name.
Jeb. So Jeb, he's like a former like Army Ranger, I think.
I've heard of this
And
guy.
anyway, he started working at Hurley with us. He's just this like really rad guy, and like he'd wear the same thing every day. He had like his uniform, super militant, just like a white.
Very
polo.
organized by the book.
This type of shorts he was wearing shorts, this type of pants he was wearing pants. These were the shoes he wore. He had 5 pairs in his closet that were exactly the same. Same kit every day. And Jeb got put on, like, hey, you're going to be in charge of the US Open. And so
The
it
perfect
was like,
guy for it.
It was the perfect guy for it. Like, I don't think any of us like knew Jeb too well at that point. But then once he's like, okay, like we're going to take over this room here, and it's just going to be like the US Open war room. And so he built a team of people that was just like, hey, your job is this, your job is that, your job is that, like retail
Which
experience.
is so important to have
Athlete, like
that
concierge service and everything. It was like, we elevated that event to where it was the sickest event ever
Yeah.
in the world. I think at that event was, we had started doing this this thing called Walk the Walk. This was Lindsay Roach had this idea to go work with all these high schools and do like a fashion show
Oh, yeah.
competition.
I remember
And it
this.
was huge, dude. It was like gaining steam. It was pretty young still, and it was already just like, we were getting hit up from schools all over the country that wanted to come join and be part of it. And we had like all these celebrity judges that would, you know, we'd have like Rob Machado, Yaden, Simpo guest judge it, and even like, you know, guys like Paul Walker and I can't even remember who else.
Yeah.
But they would judge this fashion show competition. We had one at US Open. It was honestly, as a brand, I think it was probably the best thing we'd ever done. And that's probably the one thing that like, one of the things that Nike kind of like nixed us from doing that anymore for some reason. I was still like not in those meetings at that point, but
Yeah.
like for some reason we had to cut that. And it was like, dang, this is like the best thing we've ever done because
Yeah.
we are so like beach culture, but these kids it was attracting are like inland culture,
Which
and they
is
love
your,
the beach.
which is
but-
your like not target demographic, but the
Well,
graphic.
it's a hole in our business.
Right.
Like middle America
Is what
loves
you're-
Hurley
yeah.
for this
because of that. Yeah.
because they don't surf.
Yeah.
You know, they think surfing's cool. But
Yeah.
like this was our, you know, we kind of dabbled in skate and it never really like stuck too hard for Hurley. But like this was that for us. Like, hey, women's and like kids that don't surf, this is it.
That's the
So it's
thing,
kind of-
that's
it's a
the
little
thing I hate
interesting.
about Nike, right?
You guys, you're the experts within that form, that niche, and then you do
Yeah.
something cool, and then they're like, no, we're gonna take that away. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck?
So
It was kind of weird.
Remember 6.0?
Yeah.
And remember, was 6.0 before Hurley or
No.
after? After, right?
Yeah. After.
Okay. Remember how successful 6.0 became?
I kind of don't really remember how successful they became. I remember I saw it everywhere,
So-
but I don't remember them like if they.
It was like
sold
the
a lot of
surfer
product.
beach version of skate.
It was their DC shoe. You know?
Yeah,
Okay.
I remember seeing it everywhere, but
I-
I don't remember like looking at it and going, "This is
I worked
rad."
for a shoe company, right? DVS Shoes. And at the time, DVS Shoes were the number one core skate shoe in the market, right? And Nike was trying to get in the market. Nike got into it through Hurley, right? Into the surf market.
Yeah.
But in the skate market, they couldn't get in, right? It was dominated by us, DC, Etnies, all the skate brands, the
Yeah.
endemic skate brands. And Nike couldn't get in. But I think with Hurley, they were able to like get
Trojan horse.
The Trojan horse was 6.0, right? And 6.0 is an action sports brand, right?
Yeah.
It was skate, wake, snowboarding. It was a goofy brand, but they sold shoes to the masses, right?
Yeah.
Every mall store.
Every mall store.
Yeah.
So, and they had SB, right? And SB is their skate shoe.
Well,
right?
not right out of the gates. I don't think they had SB, did they?
Well, they had SB
They
before
kinda like-
6.0.
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because, like I said, I was just
Yeah, you were close to it.
yeah, and SB came out, and they couldn't. They knew that they couldn't sell to everybody. You know.
Yeah.
Because if they tore it out, then it
Wasn't
gone.
cool.
The core
It
is
wouldn't be
done.
cool.
Yeah.
So they
You needed
accomplished.
balance.
You know, the top of the pyramid, right? It's a pyramid thing, right? Your influencer shops, your influencer kids.
The no money maker.
Yeah, but they're the marketing. The top of the
It's marketing.
pyramid is the marketing, and then down below is the mass market, right?
Yeah.
So they achieved that top market with SB, but they knew like they could sell to Cowtown, they could sell to all the best skate shops with SB, but you can't sell to Tilly's, you can't sell to Zoomies, you
Yeah.
can't sell to
And they all
Pizza.
want,
And that's where you're gonna make your
for
They
it.
want the swoosh,
Yeah.
right? And then they go, okay, well, hey, I can't give you this, but we have this, right?
Yeah.
Nike 6.0. And they did it. And they had retailers, Tilly's, Zoomies, PacSun carrying 6.0. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there as a competitor going, fuck.
Yeah.
They've got the cool kids and they've got the mall kids now.
Yeah.
With, these two different brands. I can't fucking believe it. They're not number one, right? But they're number in the top, they're in the market and they're killing it. And then all of a sudden, they've got Chloe on board, they've got Julian, right?
Yeah.
All on the Nike. It's pretty much 6.0, but
6.0.
Nike.
It was
right?
a switch with a 6L, right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
6-0.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, like, okay, they're on every skate wall, they're on every mall wall, and then bam, they get rid of it. And you're just like, wow, why are you getting rid of 6.0 when you already,
Because some
Yeah.
suit high up says we make more than all of these brands with just our white crew sock volume.
Something probably like that.
But if you really look at it, right, like,
But again, it comes down to numbers and not marketing and market share. Like
Yeah.
they come down and they look at it like, okay, how much are we spending in 6.0 and everything and all these activations and all these retail like commitments?
People that work
They're
for
like,
us and
but all we could do is add another color in our crew sock. So we do black, navy, gray, white. Like let's just add burgundy or whatever, and then that one sock pays for. That's the way they look at numbers and the way
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really
Like-
frustrating to see how they went into the market, exploited it, and then got out.
well, it was
Bad.
It was really
Sucks.
frustrating for us that worked at Hurley because we were always kind of looking to Nike to go, hey, help us out with this. Like, we got this big idea. We want to inject it with some cash and blow it up. And it was we never really got support for a number of years. And again, I wasn't involved in these conversations, so I don't know exactly how they went. But for one reason or another, we ran on our own P&L for a long time. And it didn't change until I think when we started talking about hey, 6O's in there, they're making board shorts and t-shirts, we're competing against you guys to get market share.
Yeah.
Which is didn't make any sense to us. And then so that was really frustrating. And then finally I think we always did better than them. And it was because we were so resourceful. They had all the money and they could throw big dollars at things, but they didn't have the authenticity.
Yeah.
So we had the authenticity and the roots and the core, and we just knew what to do because of that authenticity.
Yeah.
And so when we spent $1, we stretched it to go to $10. When they spent $10, it was like they spent $2.
Yeah.
And so
That's a good point to
at a
talk
certain
about.
point in time,
But honestly, though, they paid to get in the market,
Yes.
established it. It's to me, it's like car companies, right? They have different models, right? It's just like that. Nike had different models, Hurley and 6.0.
yeah.
I know what you're saying is
But for sure,
we've heard that before. They looked at the numbers and they said they could just make money without it. But in all reality, Nike, is Nike in Tilly's? Is Nike, you know what I mean? How much is Nike there? But if they had 6.0 too,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
For all the core retailers, and again, looking at the big picture, it's these big businesses, they'd rather do $16 million with 3 accounts than $3 million with 300 accounts because of the head.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
so many different ways they look at it.
Yeah.
Where
But
they're
that's, in reality, though, that's not what we're talking about.
no, but I'm just saying coming. You're talking about how they come down and make rash decisions where you got something successful. Why would you cancel it?
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out like
So,
other
I-
ideas of why they would.
I think when they pulled out, like, I don't know what the numbers were for 6.0. I don't think it was doing very well, but they decided to pull out and say, hey, you know what? I think, we were always like, hey, why wouldn't you just invest in us?
Yeah.
We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Our books, we're in the green here. And you guys are like in the negative, like, just give us a little more and we're gonna grow this like way better,
Yeah.
So finally when they said, okay, we're gonna pull out and we're gonna give you all these resources.
Yeah.
You're gonna take the team and stuff, and it kind of came at a funny time because we were about to like sign John. That was our since I had worked there. We had like Rob Machado was on the team, Timmy Kern. We signed Yaden, Jeff. This was before Pat worked there, I think. Jeff signed Yaden to the team. That was our first like bigger like
International guy?
newcomer
Yeah.
dude that we like brought on that was new. And then when Pat got there, it was like, we picked up like Simpo and Ace Buckin, and we had like a little more variety of like younger guys on the tour, and it was rad. Like we had a cool presence, and everyone was super down for the brand. They like bled for us, and that kind of all just stems from like Bob and how cool he is, and like he, through that, like Pat was that way, and I tried to be that way. And then anyway, we like went through this roster and we were like, oh, like Dane Reynolds, like they were wanting to get Dane really bad for a while. We were kind of like throwing that one around, like, yeah, that'd be insane. Like he's the man. And John's name was on the list, and we we're just like, yeah. Like I was like, dude, John's so good. He's a freak, And this was maybe right before he went like nuclear, like with how gnarly he was. He was always gnarly, but just like.
But the
You didn't hear about it
underground
as much,
gnarly, it
just
wasn't
yet.
that amateur,
Yeah,
coming
it was-
through the
it was-
rankings that's like, oh, this is the next
Chloe,
thing.
like
Yeah, Chloe.
Nike went, oh, Julian Wilson, like
Yeah.
it's an obvious, like he's a
He was-
champion. Chloe Handino, like he's a champion. Like they went and cherry picked like
Yeah.
these dudes that were just like at the pinnacle.
Yeah.
And so we were like, okay, like, dude, we're hearing John's deals up. Maybe he's not that stoked. O'Neal signed Jordy. He's taking a little bit of a backseat. I don't know. Let's fish around. And Bob and Pat were super into it. And so we ended up like, Pat was the one dealing with that, like just massaging that thing forever and ever and ever. And finally he was like, dude, we're gonna get the deal done with John. And we were just like, oh my God, this is unreal. And then honestly, like the week before the announcement of like, hey, John's signed, we're gonna announce it next week. They go, hey, we're pulling out of Surf, and
You're getting
you're gonna
everything.
take all these people, and we're like,
Which is the
What?
whole Nike 6.0 team.
yeah, which
Like-
is like, I mean, dude, there was a laundry list of like insane people, like Carissa Moore. Like
Yeah.
we didn't really have like
Michelle
surfers on
Michelle
our team.
Perez.
Yeah, Alejo Muniz,
Oh,
Michelle
Alejo?
Perez.
Yeah, oh, yeah, she was
Julian
gnarly.
Wilson, Philippe Toledo. Like he was super young, but he was crazy good. Kalohe,
Well,
Leahy Peterson.
that third
Laura
stab,
Enneberger for them.
that third stab video,
Yeah.
how surfers get paid. They showed that video.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but
Bro, you gotta watch
dude.
it.
I heard it's good. I watched the first version, and yeah, it's pretty entertaining.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But they show you guys were in Hawaii when that happened, right? And they had like a Hurley like get together with all the,
Yeah, there was maybe like multiple that kind of went on at the same time.
Yeah.
Like because there were so many people. There was all the Hurley crew, all the Nike crew, just the surfers, and
Yeah.
there was like the people that worked for the brands, and like so we were all just like dispersed amongst these like three houses, and you know how small the North Shore is.
Yeah.
It's like you
Working
tell one
out.
person, it's just like wildfire.
Oh, yeah.
So we're like,
Coconut- what is it
okay,
called?
Coconut Wireless.
Yeah, Coconut Wireless.
So it was Curtis Graham flew over, and he literally just like went from one house where it was like the A-list. Tell them. I think Pat was maybe went to John's, told him first. This is what's gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
you're still signed on. Like you're our guy.
Yeah.
So then to Julian's place, like Kolohe, you know, the team house,
Such
like all these
the
little
heaviest
places.
roster
Dude.
ever.
Yeah, you went from a heavy roster to the heaviest roster.
Heaviest roster ever.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts, dude. It's I still can't even believe it. And obviously, like, there was people that like.
And again, we love the fact that surfers got paid and made money. But like
Oh,
what you
yeah.
said, the vacuum of like, you know, these other brands, whether it's Rip Curl or Quicksilver, Billabong or X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z, now have to
Like-
compete with that.
They've done
You know?
amazing.
Yeah.
They've done amazing things to elevate the presentation of our cultures, right? But then, like, once they kind of feel like, oh, the shiny toy is not as shiny anymore, you know, and then they leave, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, another thing that pissed me off, I'm sorry to vent, but DVS shoes, you know skate park in Tampa, right?
Yeah.
Tampa Pro,
Tampa
Tampa
Pro,
Am.
Tampa Am. Yeah.
DVS was a sponsor, main sponsor of that contest, and they paid like, I think they paid like $60K a year to be the title sponsor of that event. SB comes along, you know, and says, hey, we're going to sponsor that event, or we can sponsor that event.
Yeah. Double.
Money talks.
$250 grand is what they started paying for that event. So, and then they, you know, it was cool because, yeah, they help, you know, fund
Yeah.
a lot of innovation and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But, you know, and that lasts for however long. And do we talk about Tampa Pro or Tampa Am right now? Not really,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know? So,
I mean, it was, you know, the U.S. Open is the perfect example of like they got really into it, and instead of like, hey, let's just rent all this space out on the beach to like recoup some of the investment, they're like, no, we want to own it all. We want to say who's allowed in here and who's not, and like we don't want
Yeah.
IMG to go sell this to like Joe Schmo's hot dog stand because we want it to feel premium.
yeah.
You know, and
Yeah,
it,
you can't control when you sub it out, like, you know.
that one stuck around to remain that way for a while, which is cool. It definitely feels like it's a lot more elevated than it got to for a point in time. But I hear you, man. Like the salaries of some of these surfers were getting was like just astronomical. It actually made like no sense whatsoever to the size of the brand to pay these things. Like if
Yeah.
you wanted to compete in that world and like have a rad team of people that like you
Well-
felt like made a difference,
Yeah.
you had to pay so much money that like you couldn't even like then market them sometimes if you know if you didn't have
Well-
a really good plan of like, because that was the magazines too. Then you're like, okay, we have Julian Wilson and he costs X, and now we have to pay the surf magazines to like put his picture in our ad and pay this photographer and pay that. Like you're just kind of like bleeding money everywhere to go, hey, we need to make sure everyone knows that Julian Wilson rides for Hurley,
Yeah.
and that there's this like partnership there, so they think we're rad or whatever. And it's like, dude, everything just went through the roof. Nike went to the
Well,
magazines and go, hey, we want 4 pages, 4 double pages, and it was like, okay, like here's
Well,
what
there's-
it costs. And then you're like, well, dude, if we want to get noticed, we have to have 4 double pages.
Yeah.
Well, the
And that
brand,
totally,
Yeah, you just like started doing stuff because you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I have to keep up with
it's
the
like
Joneses.
trade shows at ASR.
yeah,
I got to keep
Keeping
up
up
with the
with the
Joneses.
Joneses, yeah.
for sure. But most brands run, if they want to be, you know, fiscally responsible, it's like, okay, this is what we spend in marketing, and it's X percentage of our, you know, gross sales, or you know, like, and then this is what we spend in R&D. This is what we spend in, new, whatever how they break it up. Like marketing is by far the biggest expense,
Yes.
you know. But you what are you doing over here? Lights are you strobing? But you know, that conditioned percentage, which was norm, got just blown out. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, for the size of our business at Hurley,
Yeah.
we were spending like, I don't even know how many, 10 times more than we probably should have.
Yeah.
You know, a healthy business does that. They go, hey, marketing should be X percent, this should be that percent.
For sure.
And they just went, hey,
but-
don't worry about that. Be the best, be known as the best, and
But a
that's
lot of
gonna,
that
come
budget.
in a couple of years.
Yeah, but a lot of that budget you got to put towards retail, you know, and fixtures and windows and like you said, magazine ads and you know travel and you know like there's that pie gets divvied up pretty quick and a lot of it was like salaries.
Well, they did. I mean, we had the salaries, but we had all the store, you know, stuff, build outs, and like, where's the best retailers? Like, okay, Hurley's gonna like own that store, you know.
And that was a big budget.
We did a
we
lot
know
of those things too.
They went into the retail world as far as like striking like substantial like agreements and deals.
Yeah, and it was great. I mean, the perception was that Hurley was like dominating, you know, and it was awesome. And I think where things like really started to get like a struggle for us was there's a lot of these systems, and it probably goes back to your point that you were making, Jay, about why they make decisions they make to go, hey, we don't need this brand, we can make a sock and it can profit as much as this entire expense of a brand.
And that's default by big
they went
brands that are disconnected with what you're really trying to build long-term investment. And
so there's these systems that they have in like how they get product made and where they get it made, and they're so big, you know, they have to like have special factories where it's like all labor laws and this, like Nike can't afford to be, you know, like sweatshops and things like that. And so, you know, the surf industry, it's small, and there's a lot of brands that just like, yeah, dude, the guy down here makes t-shirts and we get some made over there. He's our friend and he's cool. Is his place get an A+ when he's on the guys that come check? Like, no, probably not, but like we love him and he's cool. He's one of our buddies. And it was like, hey, we can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and I
no
think,
pro deals, no like back end,
no,
like
and
it's all
really
just by the
sad
book.
because Hurley was like such a big account for one of those like t-shirt brands they have. Like there was some of these t-shirt printing companies that went out of business because we said, hey, we can't do business with you anymore. Because when Nike really got involved, it was like, hey, we got to shift you to this guy, and it was like way less efficient for us. You know, and so all these like things that we like had to fall into their system,
the back end shit,
sort of like it didn't make sense for us, and it was just that like.
So we've given too much
where it's like
airtime on Nike now.
Yeah.
So let's.
Hey, but
back
you
to
guys
Gilly.
you sign John, and you become his handler, kind of, right?
Yeah. So actually, right out of the gate, so Sean Ward was working at O'Neill, and when John came over, Sean came over as well, and so Sean was just like John's guy.
Yeah.
You know, I was kind of like looking after everyone else on the team.
Okay.
From like Kalohe, Julian, Carissa, Lakey, Michelle Perez, Leo Muniz, Miguel Pupo, Yadi Michael, Brett Simpson, like Ace Buck, and we had, I think at one point in time, we had 13 men on the tour of the 34.
That's so
whatever.
heavy.
13 were Hurley.
Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, dude, it was in the days.
Like the drama within.
Yeah,
the
like
drama,
certain
like-
people wouldn't stay with certain people, and it was just like, you know, it's.
Hey, we got a Hurley house over here. It's like, well, I'm not staying there because I don't want, you know.
No,
stay there.
it turned into like, you know.
I'm who I am.
So
I don't want to stay there.
I was still like more regionally focused with everything within the U.S. You know, I was doing these like tours across the U.S. and we'd sponsor Kai Neville's film and tour that across the U.S. and show it all over the place. And I was like leading that kind of stuff. And when we brought everyone in, it was like, hey, Brandon, we want you to like go on the tour. Like that's where our money's at. They're traveling around all these events. Like we want you to do that and help us leverage in all these like regions across the world where we want to own it. And so I was like,
Wow.
okay, I'm
Got
in.
tour. This guy had made the tour.
Yeah, I made
So
the
is that-
tour, no pressure.
Was that after the 6.0 team went to
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was like immediately
13
following that.
male, 5
that was
female.
like leading into Pipe that year. They announced that. And then the next year was like, hey, that's like you're gonna go to Snapper and like we're gonna have a plan of like what are we doing there. And so,
How fucking psyched were you?
yeah, I was so excited, man. It was
Because it's such a smart way to look at it. It's like, okay, we know Snapper's a Quicksilver event, but you got 13 of the best, athletes on the planet are all on Hurley. Like, how do we make an impact in that area, right?
Yeah.
How?
Even though,
and just the guys on tour, it's different than a regional pro surfer who's kind of like a free surfer.
Yeah.
If you call them and you're like, hey man, we need you to go do this thing for a week, it's a little easier to maybe get their time sometimes because
Yeah.
they're going, oh, I don't really have a schedule, free surfer, and the guys on tour, they're like, dude, I spend 9 months of the year on the road
Yeah.
and barely see my family sometimes, and when I get to be home for a week between a 12-hour flight to this next place, dude, I don't have time to drive an hour away and do this thing for you, so we were going, hey, let's make it easy on them, because of being a part of Nike, they were like, hey, we want champions, we want the guy on the podium with the gold medal, #1 in the world, who is it, and we're like, hey, it's John, Julian, Kalohe, Felipe, these are the guys right now that are going to be that guy, the world champions. Carissa Moore, and Lakey. We had so many that it was like we were just kind of sit back laughing, hey, we're just going to show up, they're going to win everything, and we're just going to hang our hat up, and it's sweet. So we kind of took another approach to it, where Pat was like, hey, what can we do there to make it better for them than it is for anyone else that's there at that contest? How do we improve it?
Your team members.
Yeah. And so we went, okay, at all the events, usually there's a volunteer physical therapist or chiropractor or something down at the event that'll work on you, and WSL has some great people in certain regions.
Yeah.
But then it was always spotty. They'd have a different guy here or there, and one year you'd go back and see someone else. So we were like, hey, let's just bring these guys that we know that are the best at what they do, Tim Brown, Mark Kazuki, Terry Romine, and make a program where they travel with us. So at every event we have one of these guys, and they work on the Hurley team. And so our guys started getting consistent work. We started doing if there wasn't a chef at each stop, there was hey, there's this restaurant that makes the same food, it's organic or whatever the spiel was, fresh juices. We got a tab over there, you're welcome with your family to go over there and eat. So I was more or less in charge of with a lot of help. I had,
You're a concierge.
yeah, I had my,
For sure.
I had my
right?
teams of
Fucking awesome.
in Europe. I had a guy, Philippe Malveaux, who was in France. We're just hey Philippe, we want this and this and this. Who is it? Where is it? He goes, okay, I'll dial it in. Mitch Ross in Australia, hey Mitch, we want to do X, Y, and Z, and Mitch just goes, cool, we'll make it happen. But I was kind of, I guess,
Spearheading it, but
you
needed
that part of on tour support for our crew, and then around that of hey, this is the Hurley needs when they're there. We need John wearing this short. We got a photo shoot over here the day after the contest. Just pull him in, and let's get this done around this event so that we don't have to peel in.
It's just so smart,
Yeah.
Healthy, less stress, being comfortable, all of those things weigh on the athlete, the stress levels and stuff, and you break that down.
Make them as comfortable
But-
as possible to perform as well as possible.
I mean,
Yeah,
but eating-
just take any thought out of it
Yeah.
for them. Of
Eating
your
well
job
is
is to
super-
show up and rip, and that's all you need to think about.
Yeah, taking
I was
all that.
booking houses for people. Hey, you need to ride from airport. I got you. Just be outside. Don't have a sign.
Yeah.
It's all dialed. Just show up.
How rad.
Rip.
It's
But
kind of
It got
funny.
to a point where we were shipping people's surfboards to the next event, so that they would just go, okay, I'm just gonna
I got 8
Fly
Show up
no
to the
bags.
locker room, and the
my
boards are in the locker
my
room.
shit's there when I show up, and it was a real service to those guys and girls, and I took a lot of pride in it. I really I like helping people. I like giving, and I felt through Nike and really Hurley, because ultimately Nike gave us the money, but like Pat and Bob, their vision was like, hey, let's like make these guys feel like superstars. They should feel like Kobe Bryant, or like Mick Jagger, or whatever.
Well, they took a playbook from Nike and experienced it in surfing.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine if,
Right?
if
Like
in the 80s and 90s Bob had those resources, he would have done it back then because of who he is.
Yeah.
Pat, who's been a 12, 15-year veteran on tour, he knows the struggles. He knows what it takes, what he wish he had, what, They got,
Absolutely.
you put like that good of a team together, including yourself and everybody there and your resources in each region, that's their home spot. But just to have people work on you that are not just knowledgeable about like what they do, but they know your body, and then every time you see them, they're like, "Hey, is that knee?" or "Hey, how's your shoulder?" You know,
exactly.
that intimacy
Consistent.
and that consistency is like it's so huge.
How long were you in that position?
Yeah, I did that for about 10 years,
Woo!
where I was like
This guy.
on the road with the team full time,
Traveling the world.
traveling the world, like 9 months out of the year was like on the road, and sometimes there was a couple gaps of like a month where I'd be at home, and then there was most of the time where it was a week or 10 days or 2 weeks. So it's I never like, I'm so lucky and so fortunate to like have got the experiences that I've gotten out of this. It's like thankful that I see it as that, but there's a lot of things you sacrifice to go do that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just me. And then you're talking about the surfers that they're at home and they're like, hey, if I want to show up ready to win at the next event, like I need to be in the gym, I need to be doing this, I need to do that. And so even more demand on them. Like I got to kind of watch firsthand what some of these people go through.
Yeah.
And then, obviously like you show up and you give it your best and it doesn't go your way. And it's like, that was almost the time where I was like, got the closest with a lot of people, because they were just like, dude, I just freaking spent the last 7 months traveling around. I'm like, lost and what's going on here?
Did you become like a coach too, or?
Yeah, I mean, I had my hands full with so many other things because we had so many people on tour. I was the first priority was always to like be down at the beach when the contest was on.
Yeah.
And like morning surfs, like before the calls, we were always
Let's
down
talk
there
about the
watching.
perks of the business and surfing a lot of these spots around the world.
Yeah. But what was the question again you asked me?
Like, were you starting to coach people?
Oh
more,
yeah.
or?
There was a couple guys that I felt like leaned on me more than others, but I felt like I always had to be prepared to give an answer, because like a Julian wouldn't really ask me very often like what I thought about something. He would have his coach or whatever, or sometimes he'd just be there solo, and then all of a sudden one time he'd go, hey, who got the best waves in the last seat? Where's the best scores coming in? Should I be looking at the right or the left? And I'm just like, you got to be ready to give them the answer, and the right answer right then. And so, in a way, I was coaching to that degree. And then there was a couple other people, like a Carissa would actually go like, hey, will you coach me at this contest? Like, be in my corner, watch me ride all my boards before the contest, and da-da-da.
Yeah.
And so there was a few like more coaching moments like that. But I liked it, but I just, the pressure that came with it, I just kind of felt like uneasy about it all the time, and it's such a high level and there's so much at stake, and I just, I don't feel like it was like the best thing I ever did, but it was super fun.
Yeah, because your job is so weird.
It is weird. It's weird to think that was a job. Like
because you're like a handler, concierge, like tour bro.
But
yeah, it's like I'm the guy that they can talk to about whatever that is not competing against them.
Yeah.
And so like when I would stay at the team house where there would be a few people staying together, they'd be like, hey, like come to dinner with me tonight, and then like that guy wouldn't come. whatever, you know, they just
Yeah.
needed to vent to someone that isn't the guy in their heat tomorrow. And so it just became like, dude, you start hearing stuff and you're like, you're almost like a therapist sometimes, just a sounding board to like
Yeah.
life.
Which
and
is
the
rad.
same, like they become family on the road. You know,
Yeah.
you spend so much time around these
Which
people.
could be drama, but a lot of times it's great insight. It's probably super interesting
Yeah.
to you knowing what
I'm
they're
a fan of
like,
every
you
one
know
of
what I
these people,
mean?
so I'm like,
Well, it's
like-
dude, Julian's like,
what's funny,
Kalohe, like,
Gilly,
I was
like you were
blown away.
you have experienced. You're the 1% of the 1% of like
The insider.
what a pro the inside of the pro surfing world.
and tour. Like,
You know what I mean? It's so crazy because of the experiences that you've had, and we don't care. Like, I mean, we're not asking about gossip but it's so weird. Like you experienced all that because there's so many people that are quirky that like John, right? He's a quirky dude, right? He's a fucking freak in nature, but he's also a nice, good person. But he's a freak of nature,
Yeah.
right? And
And he likes to keep his circle pretty tight, you know, and it feels really special when you get invited in.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, like he's telling me about personal things
Yeah.
that he doesn't tell a lot of people.
yeah,
And yeah, it was rad to like be that close to that much success too. Like those
Greatness.
people were winning. Like every event was like, you know, if we didn't have like 3 or 4 surfers in the quarterfinals, it was like, damn, that event was horrible.
yeah.
You know, and,
Which
and
is really-
typically
which
it was
is
like
so big.
we're getting a win.
Yeah.
Like between Carissa
and that's the
and
expectation,
And, like-
but that's also the reality. So you're like conditioned, but you also gotta, you're gonna have fallout. Some people don't perform, or
a lot of
there's-
matchups.
You got a lot more success than
You've been
fallout, but still.
You've been on the beach, on site of some of the most amazing,
Triumphant wins and
yeah,
of
of Pipeline, Australia, Portugal. Like, what things come to mind when you go, fuck?
So glad I witnessed
was
that.
there
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that.
I mean, pipe
Gosh,
obviously,
there's a
right?
lot of things that I saw that I will never ever forget. When Kelly surfed against Andy in the final at Pipe, that was like the wildest surf contest ever. It was
So wait,
just
you were at the
I was on the beach that year, yeah, and that was nuts. That was just
Andy
like,
won, right?
Andy won.
Yeah.
Won the world title. It was for the world title and like everything. That was insane.
Holy shit!
What year was it that Chopu was bombing? 2014.
That was
The
the
Code
final-
Red?
It wasn't Code Red, but it was like
One of the other
it was
big ones?
really
John
big.
versus Kelly.
John versus Kelly in the semis,
And Kelly won.
and Kelly won that heat. I mean, John
Lost
probably
in
won the
game.
heat in my opinion, but then Kelly
Had
won
an
the
extra
heat
score.
and went into the final against Gabe, and Gabe won the event.
Yeah.
But remember some of the waves that were ridden in that?
Oh my God.
And so
You're in the water.
I was there, and not only that, I'd never really driven a jet ski, but Dino Andino went, hey, Chloe's heat's gonna surf, like jump on this ski and drive it so I can go over here and watch. And I was like, dude, I don't know how to drive a jet ski. I'm in the channel at Choku, just like, oh my God, there's freaking sets coming out of nowhere.
Yeah. And
it
there's
was
just hundreds of boats.
hundreds
in the
of boats.
fucking
It's the
channel.
scariest thing of all time. But I pulled it and like learned how to drive a ski, and now I'm like, somewhat comfortable on doing that. but that whole event, like I remember Simpo was there during that event. Like I remember screaming at him in the channel one time. I was always caddying
So
for our
bad.
surfers in the channel.
Yeah.
And so Chopu is one of the ones where you're
You could
actually
be
in the water.
You could be just so
like,
close.
The door right there is like where they're taking off. You see their expression on their face when a wave comes, and it's just like the whole channel's lighting up Raymana and screaming and go and just this
It's
inverted drop,
gladiators.
and like it is.
It's
It's
a
a
Owen
Coliseum.
Wright and
Yeah,
Kayak
definitely.
and probably Wilco. I mean, everyone that year got psycho, and those guys got some
You did
humongous
it for
waves.
10 fucking years.
Yeah.
So
With Mick, the shark
You were there
incident
too?
with Mick. Yeah, I was on the beach, and like I remember seeing it, and I thought like a pod of dolphins were like running into him
Yeah.
because there was multiple like
A lot of
fin.
ocean
You saw
life.
you saw the like the dorsal fin and the tail like kind of
Yeah.
bumping. I was like,
It's a big ass
what's
fucking
going on?
shark.
And then a wave
Huge.
came and he like went under, and we were all like,
Was there a
"That was
gas?
a shark, dude."
Was there a gas on the
He's
beach?
dead.
Yeah.
We were just like tripping out, and then he got on the ski and got into the beach and he went around, dude, and like went into the athlete area where it was kind of closed off to the public, but he hugged every single person in there.
Yeah.
If he knew him or didn't, like came up and just gave him a hug, was crying, and just like with
Yeah.
the next guy and hugged him. And just, it was so surreal. And Julian was in that final.
Julian paddled to him.
Julian like paddled
Yeah,
to
he's a
him.
freaking animal.
Like,
Yeah. It was nuts.
on the beach, I mean, I could just imagine like the you know,
What the fuck's going on?
the gasp of like, what's you know, like all
Yeah.
the chatter that's going on, and then you see the shark, and then the wave comes up, and you can't see Mick, and you're like, oh my god, like you said, he's dead, he's fucking dead,
Yeah.
and then you see Julian paddling across to try to go to him, right?
Yeah,
and you're just like,
I think Mick's leash broke, so he was like swimming, and we're just like, well, he's moving, like he doesn't have a leg for sure. And then the jet ski got him, and he got on, and we're like, okay, well, he's got 2 legs, but like he's guaranteed thrashed. And then he got in, like not a scratch.
Fucking
It was
so
pretty nuts.
Chopu, fanning incident.
I mean, gosh,
Hype, you were fucking there.
Yeah,
Hype
Kelly was
when-
Andy for the title was really crazy.
And that was like early. That was a long. That was the
Yeah,
long,
that
that
was
was the
like-
oldest.
Yeah, that was probably before like we got all the Nike people on the
Yeah.
team. Geez, I wish my memory was better, but
Dude,
there were so
let's,
many good
let's
ones.
talk about your surf sessions. Fuck these pro guys that like, you know, like winning all this shit. I want to talk about Gilly getting screaming waves at JJ
Let's
on the
go.
best right. I want to
Yeah.
hear about like,
Well, you know, that's everyone's first question when I'd come back from anywhere, like, oh my god,
I was
the waves were
working.
pumping, like, how many good waves did you get? And
come on.
if you think about it and you go, okay, there's the best women in the world there,
Yeah.
surfers, the best male surfers in the world, like the best in the whole world. They're all there and they're all surfing. So when I paddle out,
Yeah.
I'm not really getting many waves. And especially when it's like an event day or a potential like the surf before the call gets made, it's like I'm on the beach.
That's why I
I'm
hate
watching everyone rip.
Strider so much
And it's
because
cool.
he gets the waves in between the heats and then the
Yeah,
downtime.
yeah.
Like
Strider has it.
that guy's pulling into like so many good ones in
Yeah,
between.
he has a good little system going. for
You got
sure.
to, yeah, you're there
But,
to support the athletes, so you got to be like before the event. You're not surfing,
Yeah,
you know, like
and I was,
late
I was
days.
pretty close to like, I mean, I was really, really close to a couple of the surfers on the team, and others not as close. But I had a great relationship with everyone. I'd like to think.
yeah.
But you know, you always hear them saying like, "Oh, so and so is like a coach who's out there in the morning before the comp, like dropping in on the set of the day," and it's just
Oh.
like, yeah, that's annoying, dude. Everyone's here to
Yeah.
like watch what you guys are gonna do, and then they're out there like getting in your way or taking waves, and
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, I don't want to be that guy. So I tried to keep it to a minimum, but yeah, there was definitely some lay days. That year at Chopu, actually, there was a few days in lead up to the event where guys weren't surfing because they knew it was just going to be code redding in a couple days. And so it was 3 foot, and after the morning surf, when everyone kind of surfed before the sun was really out at like 9:30, 10 o'clock, it would just go like, I mean, when I say no one, I don't mean a few guys, I mean literally not one person.
Wow.
And like 4 foot, perfect Chopu, not a breath of wind. I'd surf
Not
for
a drop out of
an
spot.
hour, and then
Not
like,
a drop
you know,
out of
Ronnie and the
spot.
commentary team would paddle out, and there'd be like 4 other people, Potts and Ronnie, Joe, Strider, Rosie, and we just surf, trade off waves, like, you know, for another hour, and then we call it. For the day.
What a charmed life that is.
So
Even though you don't
the
get to
best I
surf.
ever got, the best I ever got, I think, is I randomly became pretty good friends with Kyborg Garcia,
Oh wow.
who was like, you know, I always had this joke with my friend Brad that like, it was always like, hey, the gnarliest thing you could ever do is like, you gotta go like say this to Kyborg or do this with kiteboard or something. And it was like, oh, I'd never do that. Like, that guy will kill us. But we were in Tahiti one year, and I remember Dino was on his jet ski, and he was really good friends with Kai. And I was on this, we had jet skis over there in Tahiti now with Nike, Hurley, and I had all these, I used to bring tons of snacks and like lots of good like power bars, and you know, I'd go to Mother's and buy all this stuff, load up for all the team to have like killer stuff while we were there. And I remember Dino, I gave Dino some, he's eating it. And I was like, where'd you get that? He's like, oh, my friend Gilly right here. And Kai pulls his ski up and he's like, hey, you got some snacks? And Dino said you got snacks. And I was like, oh yeah, like here, dude, have whatever you want. Like just kind of like look away, like don't make eye contact. He's like, all right, thanks, here. And I gave it back. Came back over later, like, hey, you got some more of that stuff? Get him more. And then the next, maybe that end of that year, I like went to Hawaii, and I went to go do jiu-jitsu. I like got the bug doing jiu-jitsu one year, and Michelle Perez took me, and I just got hooked. And so I showed up at jiu-jitsu, and Kai was there, and he's like, Gilly, you do jiu-jitsu? And I was like, yeah, dude, I love it. It's so much fun. And I'd been like a couple of years into it at that point. So I think I like had a blue belt, and he was just like, oh, that's so cool. And then the next day I went to the church or whatever on Sunday, and I walk in, and like Kai was sitting there, and he's just like, what the heck? So we kind of like kept having these like
meetings,
little
run-ins.
Yeah, little run-ins, and so it was really cool. Anyway, because of all that connection, we kind of like started texting each other and calling, just checking in, and always just kind of like encouraging each other. And,
the most menacing North Shore Hawaii guy
I know.
ever.
I was like, at one time my phone buzzed and it was Kai, and Brad was like, why did Kai Born just text me? And I'm like, dude, you text me like every day. Like, you know, it's crazy. I don't know.
We're bros.
But we were in Fiji one year.
You want to talk shit? I got my backup boy over
Fiji
here.
Pro, and every morning Kai would be like, he was doing water patrol there, so he's like, hey Gilly, like, you could wait for the boat that's gonna go out at 9, or jump on my ski and let's go for like super early, and we'll zip out there, surf before anyone gets there. And so I'm like, all right, it's on. So we were doing that. I was jumping on the Kai, we'd get out there, we'd surf a bunch, like laughing, going out.
That
That was another year.
Into just a tight.
What
year
a power bar can do for the rest of your life.
The waves got really big, and Cloudbreak was like fire. You know, everyone's out surfing Cloudbreak, and restaurants is like 5 foot, perfect. And the contest was still going on, and I think the way it worked on Tabarua was the surfers had to pay for the first week, like no matter what, and even if they lost day 1, they had to pay for the stay first week. Then each additional day, and it's not cheap to stay there,
No.
so each additional day was like however much money, but they could pay by the day after that. So I think the first week had passed, everyone was on their day-to-day, so once they lost in the event, they were like, I'm going home, because this event is costing me money to be here.
Yeah.
So everyone was bailing, and the waves are firing, and we're just there. And
You're
they're
waiting
going-
like quarter semifinals left. There's only a few guys
They were
left.
surfing like, for some reason they would like surf 2 or 3 heats a day or 4 heats a day out of Cloudbreak, and then call the contest off for the day, thinking tomorrow's going to be bigger and better. And so no one would want to surf anymore. They're saving their energy. And like Ross Williams was there for commentary, I think at the time. Dino was there, Kai, myself, and maybe like 4 other people were surfing restaurants.
How many times did you guys just
And it was firing. That was the most I ever scored.
talk
in
about
my
the
life,
perks of the job?
for sure.
That's what I'm talking about.
Like how many times that happened over the years?
He's
where
surfing.
I know.
lay day, but it's only lay day because it's not perfect, and those guys are saving themselves.
Yeah, because
Please tell our listeners that you snorkeled out there as well.
Oh yeah, flat
Because-
days.
It's one thing to surf restaurants, and it's that perfect, and you don't even think about what's under, except like you don't want to land on a coral head. And then when you go and snorkel out there, you're like, what the fuck am I surfing over? Like Nemo Land. Like this is like
Yeah.
the craziest, like
Most beautiful.
it's just spectacular. Like
Yeah,
it's just
it's
what I've
wild,
never
dude.
seen it, like the colors and everything.
Yeah, I never
But that's
imagined
like-
like doing any of this stuff I've got to do.
But
as a
like,
kid, it's
again, we talk about like
The,
surf and score, and then all the other like.
Because
things
it's
you
one
can
thing to
experience.
like, you know, we talked about being there for these pivotal, iconic moments in time and history of the sport, right? Like watching the greatest surfers of all time
Battle it out.
battle it out, and just like those tens at Chopu and Kelly getting beat by Andy in a final with waves that were pumping, right?
Yeah.
And then learning like, oh yeah, you know, these guys, you know, the contest is on hold, it's a lay day, everyone's resting, saving themselves for the next day, but then you and commentary get to fucking, oh
Yeah.
they're sitting in their
Yeah.
cabanas, we're fucking pulling in on 4 to 6 feet perfection.
Yeah, throw a video camera at these guys.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I wish.
I wish.
No, man, I had a lot of days that I should have taken advantage of it a little more. But like I said, I never wanted to be that guy that someone called that needed something and I wasn't there because I was off surfing and like
Yeah.
doing a 3-hour like mission.
Which
down
is
the
why
road.
you've had
I
the
wouldn't-
success in the.
but
In the
I would have never lasted.
No, I think it was. I had like a perfect balance.
He would have
'cause-
crashed on the jet ski and gone over the falls.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I love
Kai,
surfing.
this is my last power bomb.
Don't get me wrong, but I really
He's
love.
counting down over here, this guy.
Allah,
Talking to his
Allah, you fucking surfers, fucking nerds.
Get out of my way.
No, but I mean, again, you know, as we've known you as long as we have, and we follow what you've done, and we're just like, dude, we're so stoked that you got to.
We're jealous.
Yeah,
That's for
for
damn
sure.
sure.
You know.
So,
But
okay,
just-
we did that for 10 years.
Yeah,
We're on 3 hours.
I know this is long. We might have to snip around a few dead spots.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
There's no dead parts.
I know.
no, not even.
So-
But you did that, and then like Hurley obviously was, you know, coming to an.
Yeah, we'll do a big fast forward.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, there was a lot of rumors Nike was selling the brand, and the Hurley family was really trying to get the brand back.
Which
Yeah.
is such a bummer.
And they had like a great group
But
of
they
people
didn't do
that
it.
wanted to help them do that. And I don't know exactly how it went down, but I guess these Blue Star Alliance guys came in over the top of like a lot of money and just went, hey, this is what we got, and that's what we're doing. And so Nike went that route. And pretty much right out of the gates, they laid off like 75+% of the company. I was there still, but like, our marketing team was probably about 30 people that did, and from where we were when I first started to that, like there was so much change just in the way that business was done.
Yeah.
The digital age was like huge, and people were direct to consumer, and like that was a massive thing. And there's a team of people that did all that, shooting product and getting it online, and a sales team, and people that ordered the product for the website, and all these different things. We probably had 35 employees, and then some contractors that worked in marketing, and they let every one of them go except for maybe 6 of us. And then they kept the 6 of us for another few weeks, and then let 3 of them go, and kept myself, a girl named Rihanna Batista, who had been at the brand probably longer than me, and then a young guy, James Giordano. So it was just the 3 of us. Yeah, Gio. It was just the 3 of us, and we were just like, dude, this is impossible. Like, we got this mountain to climb with no resources. They didn't want to fund anything. They didn't want to help us like get things done. The level of expectation was, hey, we have this website, and we need to put all this stuff there. And I'm just like, I never did that. I don't know how to do that. I'm not a graphic designer. So there was a lot of challenges like that for the first few months. Aside from that, my main job at that point, I guess, was they fired a lot of athletes. Any contract they could get out of, they got right out of it. If they could give 0 days warning, they did. They They just went right by the contract verbiage. You know, there was no relationship for them, so it's easy to go. You sign this agreement, and it says we can let you go for any reason today, and we're doing that. Thanks, see you later. You know, with Bob, it was like, you know, if things were coming to an end for someone, he'd probably go, hey, why don't we just keep it going for 6 months, give you some time to look around,
Start
figure it out.
calling people,
and
get an exit strategy.
we want to help you. You know, we care about where you're going. And so that's where it was different. For me, I just always having that Hurley family mentality of like, man, just like, dude, my granny that raised me, like, treat people the way you want to be treated. I kind of always had that like in my head of let's make it right. You know, it's not gonna. I don't mind having difficult conversations.
Yeah.
But if it's just out of the blue and not cool, like then that's.
But you know, the bummer is like those suit and ties or whoever making those calls don't have those relationships. It's like this is a partnership. Like they've given and helped the brand. You know, just like we've supported and paid them to help. You know, it's like it's. So and then when you take that away and it's just a contract, it's just like that's not the way.
I don't think they didn't. Obviously, they didn't. They don't have the authenticity. They aren't close to it. They don't see the roots that like you're gonna uproot by doing this and like kind of massacring the brand a little bit. And they caught a lot of flack for it right out of the gates. And I sort of felt like because Pat had left already, Pat and Evan Slater were like the heads of marketing for a lot of years. And they, maybe a year or 2 years before the sale, I think they knew something was up.
Yeah.
They probably won't admit to it, but it was a little funny timing that they both decided to leave. But they left, and it kind of elevated me to where I had a bigger role, and it was cool. I was stoked. I was kind of wanting something a little different after traveling that much. I got a little burnt out on it. And then anyway, those guys were out. The company kind of shifted after the sale, and I just had to like start calling athletes and like, hey, these guys are letting go and this deal, and I felt like a lot
That's
of
the
it.
worst job
the
ever.
people that I was close to knew that like, hey, this isn't my call.
Yeah.
But then the perception around the industry, I felt like, was the people that maybe aren't on the inside are looking, going like, oh, this guy Brandon like just became the head of marketing, and this is what he's doing. And it just was like bad conversation after bad conversation, and like no tact, so like no taste with any of it, that I finally was like, you know what, I just gotta separate myself from this. Like even the stress and like, you know, I was like, I can fall asleep anywhere. I'm mildly narcoleptic. I make a joke. But I like couldn't sleep at night, and it was just like these guys were calling me at like, dude, they're in New York. I was being called at like midnight on Sunday in Costa Mesa, getting yelled at by people like, why did this happen? Like over like an Instagram post or something. And I'm just like, what is going on here? And I ended up just one day I just went, I need to quit, and I quit. Like 2 days later, I didn't want to think about it too much because it was obviously really scary. I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't have anything. I just sort of was like, I know this ain't it. The future is not here for me, and like I want to find what I had that would be my next 16 years. Hopefully, you know. So I left, just pulled the ripcord.
Well, I mean that's tough to do, but when you're not happy and it's like, you know, you're optimistic, like, you know what, like I have a set of skills, I have a good connection and network, you know, like
in the back of your mind, you knew you'd find something.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, there's the Hurley family, both like Bill, who was like starting IPD, and then the rest of like, you know, Bob's sons that were starting the Can't Do It group that's Simple in Florence. Like I started hearing rumors about that stuff, and I was having conversations with those guys about things, and I just, I kind of knew enough people from like, I was such a fan of like surfing in the industry that like I went to every Billabong party, Volcom party, Quicksilver thing, Ruka. Like I loved being around it, even though I worked for another brand. I just wanted to see what people were doing, and like my friend, they were all my friends.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like, hey, I'll probably be fine, but I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
you
just
took
the
a big
unknown.
risk.
So I just went without anything. I just went, I can't stay here another day, and I
Yeah.
just took the leap. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna like
We've all been there.
take like
Yeah.
6 months off and just kind of kick it and like, you know, maybe take a couple little kind of, I guess, more or less a consulting
Sabbatical.
thing to like make a few bucks here and there, so I'm not like on $0 and figure out what I'm gonna do next.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, it's scary to walk away from a paycheck, but it's also like your conscience, right? Like you can't sleep at night.
Well, I kind of looked at it like, you know, my dad's such a worrywart, and he was just like, dude, don't quit unless you have something. And my stepmom was like, if you're not happy, you need to leave. And in my own head, I was like, the scariest thing is to stay here. If I stay here, that is what scares me the most. And if I don't have a job, like I'm still single, you know, I live alone, I don't need much.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have kids.
You can take a little
I
bit
was
more
like,
risk
dude,
than
I
others.
actually can do this right now because I don't have a family to feed, and like, you know, I'm not like in that situation where
Yeah.
I can't afford to do this, so
Yeah.
I have to do this right now. And I always wanted to move to Hawaii. Like for a long time, I tried to convince Pat to let me do that. And when I left, I just went, okay, I'm gonna move to Hawaii. And so my first thing was I text Kai and I said, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Oahu for a little while.
I'll bring snacks.
Do you let me know if you know of anyone renting something? And he said, that's so weird. He just texted me that because the lady that rents my unit just told me she's moving out at the end of this month.
Wow.
And it's yours if you want it.
How
And so I just went,
crazy.
like, all these, like, you know, kind of
Coincidences.
coincidence, but I just believe that there's, like, more to it. You know?
Yeah.
Like, everything that's happened to me in my life, I kind of felt like, dude, that's not by chance that
No.
I met that guy or did this or that.
Yeah.
So I just, like, sort of believed in that of, like, hey, my path is, like, opening up, you know.
It's pretty
Spiritual,
testing.
like, you know, God's opening doors, and like other ones are shutting and these ones are opening, like, let's go. You know, it feels right.
Yep.
And so I went and I had a couple other like crazy things I was sending to friends that like, man, I'm struggling with this decision. I'm nervous to move to Hawaii. I've never like moved out of state before, and they were like, oh well, you know, like check, you know, read this and check this out, and like all these like weird scriptures and stuff. And then the day I was going there, this friend of mine, I was like texting her like, I'm doing it, I'm getting on the plane right now, and she's like, no way, like, hey, read this thing I just read. She sent me like the exact same thing like my pastor friend was sending me a year before, or like not a year, but like 6
Yeah.
months before, like the day I was landing in Hawaii. And I was just like, that's like meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, like this is all happening for a reason.
Yeah.
And
And
it's good for change too, like to get, you know,
Yeah.
to like a cleansing.
You just
and-
need somebody to tell you what you already know.
yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And I
Like-
I kind of felt like when I left Hurley, I definitely was like in the routine of like, hey, I'd come to Outpost Kitchen or go to like Ipono Cafe and like see all the same people like, dude, what are you doing now? Like, where you at? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I got nothing. Like, I think I kind of got burnt out and like maybe embarrassed or like just sort of like man, I feel like a loser or something. I don't know. It just it didn't feel good. And so I went, I need to just get out of town. I need to clear my head. I need to like figure out what I'm doing next, because right now all I'm doing is like
Explain
the same
yourself.
thing I do every day.
You need to
I
change
need
the
to
scenery,
change.
but you also need to not have that weight of like,
Well,
you know, like you said, like
Yeah.
people.
I mean,
Like-
Orange County culture is very like, hey, like, what's your job? What do
What do you
do?
do?
What do you-
Like, it's
what-
that vibe, and I kind of like
What do you mean you
fell
have
into
nothing
that
going
of
on?
like, dang man, this doesn't feel good, and I just went, I need to like remove myself from that thinking, and just sort of like retreat. And Hawaii was exactly that for me. It was like mental, physical, spiritual retreat of like, I connected with some great friends that I've known for a long time out there, and like made some insane new friends, and like just got my head straight. Kai was so cool and like looked after me so hard over there and took me like, I said I was in jiu-jitsu and he was taking me to jiu-jitsu all the time and training with all these guys and showing me like so much stuff in that world and introducing me to all his friends, and I just met some insane like rad people.
What's funny, Gilly, is like, sorry to interrupt, but like you've lived everywhere else but home.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It's
moving
funny.
to somewhere doesn't really mean anything because you've been living.
Yeah.
And he's
somewhere
not
else.
moving somewhere that he's unfamiliar with. He spent a lot of time there, and that's why you have a connection.
Yeah,
Right?
and I loved it there so
like
much.
This is,
But you know what I mean? Like you were already
a
out
nomad.
there. And
In a way.
like I said earlier, like you needed confirmation and people to tell you what you already knew in your heart. Right?
Yeah.
And knew in your mind.
Yeah.
Like, you need that confirmation and validation from other people to go, hey, you're doing the right thing. You did the right thing. Right?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
like feel good about it.
And sort of like the physical and like mental like stress when I was still at Hurley towards the end. Like
Oh my
I
God.
quit surfing, like I was eating bad, I was just treating my body like really bad. And
like Lana.
work stress, just like constantly
See that?
computer body.
Yeah.
And finally I went, okay, like this is not good for me.
Yeah.
So Hawaii was very like, I'm gonna like do me. I'm gonna train, I'm gonna try and eat healthy. That didn't go great because my lunches are really good. Poopa K Grill kind of took care of me, and Raised by the Waves, they're killer health food. But
I love food.
but
I love Hawaiian food.
just the training, and I kind of fell back in love with surfing and sort of started to remember like, okay, this is it, dude. I love doing this. I want to still be doing this. Like, what is it? How do I still work in the surf world? And like, where's it going? So I kind of started taking on like odd jobs.
Consulting and
I was like helping
hooking.
the brand DB for a little bit, the board bags, and I helped them launch
Killed
their
it.
surf within the U.S. Opened 50 retailers across the U.S., which I'd never done sales before.
Can I tell you a secret? They hit me up.
Oh no way!
And I was gonna do it. And I got greedy and they never called me back.
No way. So I said no for a few times because the name obviously, but then they're like, oh, we're rebranding, it's DB, there's no beach bag, whatever.
Yeah.
And they actually sent me the product, and that was what I went, this board bag is legitimately like the best board bag I've ever used. And I
You
use a
killed
lot of
it,
board
dude.
bags.
I was jealous. I was like,
So-
damn. And then I heard you were doing it. I'm like, fuck. They're gonna kill it.
Yeah, and that was cool. Like I spent a year helping those guys, and really it was like helping myself because I never done sales. I never knew how to do any of that, but I had connections.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, like I can do way more than I even think I can do.
Yeah.
I don't have to just like go on the world tour and travel around with surfers. Like I can
Create
affect
other
businesses in
Yeah.
different ways.
Your,
And
your connections and your experience and your network is valuable.
Yeah.
You just need to tap into what it is that,
yeah.
you know.
And so around that same time, when I was like leaving Hurley, Travis Foray, like one of my really good friends, you know, he founded What Youth, and that thing was super cool and had its like moment in the spotlight. And then leaving there, he kind of like took a little hiatus, and then finally developed what is Inherent Bummer.
Love it.
Yeah.
And so I left Hurley, and he, you know, we started talking, and I was like trying to get him to like do something with me that I was like, hey, I have this idea and I want to like build this like culture around this and that. And like he was going, well, it's funny because like I've started to do that, and I'm doing this and that, and like maybe not this, what you're talking about, but more of this, and I see the future for that. And so I was like, okay, well, like maybe there's something to this. And so he just started hitting me up like, hey, I have this job for a client. They want to, you know, create this series about these surfers and blah, blah, blah. Like, you know all these people. Do you want to help me? I'll pay you. So I started doing a bit of stuff with Travis. And as that started going on with Inherent Bummer, I just was like, this is fun. This feels like Hurley, like what it felt like in the beginning.
Create it,
you know?
and still can
Yeah.
people
Small
out
team.
and putting out, you know, great content and
Yeah, and just it felt like we're doing something our own, and it really does feel like very unique. It's different than any brand, what any other brand's doing. The vision is like very much like hey, you hit these like speed bumps and roadblocks in life, and sometimes you show up at the beach and it's on shore and shitty, but we're gonna paddle out anyway.
Yeah. Like the day we surfed the other day.
Shoulder shrug, like whatever, we're surfing.
It's kind of like our podcast, man.
Right? That's a little bit of the
I saw
attitude behind
Gilly in the parking lot on Northside the other day, and then Travis paddled out.
Sick.
Yeah. So we've been doing that, and after a few months, Travis and I were just keeping in touch. I still had all these things going that I was like helping here and there and doing a bunch of different random stuff, and I didn't really know what I was doing yet. And then
You were doing stuff for the board riders too, right?
Yeah. So I was on the board of directors. I still am for Huntington Board Riders Club, which is super rad. Like the community aspect of that is just like right up my alley. I love it. Super cool. So I'm still super involved there. Even when I was in Hawaii, like I was jumping on to have phone calls about it, and trying to kind of spread the word in Hawaii to the right people. Like, hey, you guys should get this going. It's insane.
Yeah.
Here's what we do, and you'll love it. So it's a matter of time before that one sparks.
Yeah.
But yeah, Travis was just like looking at the big picture and going, hey, like it was just him. His wife's an amazing writer, and she writes some stuff for the site here and there, and definitely like has like big vision mindset. So she's rad and helps us. Eleanor's cool, and Travis was like, hey, what if you just became my partner in this? Like we can do kind of everything together. I'll pull you into this and that. Like I'm working on X, Y, and Z. Like, would you be into it? And so we started talking about that, and I was like, man, this feels really good. And just following that same
Follow your heart.
hey, this door is opened, and one of my best friends, like literally the first new friend I ever made when I moved to Huntington Beach was Travis, and he's like got this rad thing going, and we have a lot of common ground of like what we want to do and where we think it can go, and so I was like, yeah, let's do it. So
Fucking awesome.
I jumped into that. Yeah.
You know that you guys sponsor the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure.
I hear it in
Okay.
the intro.
Just making sure.
What? I mean, you're, come full circle, guy from Downey that like moves to HB.
Whoa, you trying to do a wrap up here, bro?
Yeah.
That's my job.
Yeah. I'm going to try to speed it up because my battery's going to die on my phone, and you talk circles like 10 times.
I'm pretty good at it.
Okay.
I know.
Can you do it?
I
Can you
probably
do it?
say a little too much.
Yeah.
No, dude, this is
But you
awesome.
move in, like you said, you meet your group of HB, Groms, try
Wait,
to speed.
can I put you on hold for a second?
Oh my God.
Tell us what Inherent Bummer is and what the future Inherent Bummer is.
Plug.
Okay, so Inherent Bummer is a kind of like a production and media house. We create our own media that is like the stories within surfing, music, art, kind of culture, and the surrounding things that touch all those fun little things that we like. And so we tell stories about people and events and things that happen in that world. And then also we work as a production arm for brands to create content, commercials, series, videos, movies, all sorts of things like that. So yeah, and I mean the future is big, man. We have big goals and a lot of cool ideas, and we've been sharing it around with like some of the industry people that work at some of the brands, and it's been very well received.
Yeah.
The only there's Stab, who does a great job with like a lot of things that they do, but there's just so many stories within surfing that can be told and that aren't getting the FaceTime, and so we just want to be there to give a little different perspective on what is being told, and even tell some stories that aren't being told. If you look at us, I don't really like the comparison of us to Stab. Obviously, we're way smaller right now, but it is very different. We do talk a lot in like.
And you need that.
Art and music.
You need competition.
There's
the common
hole. There's a big hole in like how we receive content like Instagram is not really what we're talking about here, or YouTube's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about like what magazines used to mean, right?
Yeah.
To us as surfers
And fans of the sport.
yeah, like
culture.
how many magazines there were for us to like devour, right?
Yeah.
And you guys, staff in here at Plumber, you guys are those new avenues and portals for us to like, you know, get our content. And
Yeah.
I'm
And
psyched.
the common goal is to
I'm psyched.
elevate the sport and
Yeah.
the industry and the culture, but yeah, you need a different perspective, different lens that
Yeah.
you're kind of like,
Yeah.
hey, they do
It's
this
like-
great, but they're not doing this, and we're going to focus on what, you know, like
Yeah.
it's just kind of taking a different
And a
viewpoint.
lot of the things that we choose to talk about are probably things that they wouldn't even want to talk about.
Yeah.
And so that's our point of difference of
Yeah.
but it is primarily like, 85% is like surf. And that's what, Travis and I grew up doing and
Yeah.
loved.
Well, this
Like
podcast
those two?
100%.
This is 100%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're core lords. The kids say core lord.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. We also make some merch
Yeah.
from time to time. We do little merch.
I'll have you
drops
know,
and
I
stuff.
bought
Pretty
myself
fun.
a T-shirt.
Thank you. For
I bought
support.
my 2 kids T-shirts. So
Yes.
we
What'd you get,
can check
Jay?
it out.
Nothing. Where's my Where's my free shirt?
Oh.
Bro, I'm the
didn't know
one that I'm the Filipino Jew.
I didn't even know they made shirts, but now that I know they did.
Yeah,
like,
dude, they make
yeah.
sick
He hasn't
gear.
followed it yet, but
I'm gonna
you'll
have
get
to
there
get on
one
it.
day. It's
Yeah.
you got to really be in the know to know.
Yeah.
I'm in the know.
He is.
I'm in the
This
know.
guy is
He's
in.
on the inside track.
He is. Yeah, my battery's gonna die.
Okay.
So
Before we
can-
leave-
can you do a quick wrap up?
Well, I'm gonna do the gifting part of the show.
Okay.
Okay.
This is what I came for.
First off, he's wearing the awesome Late Night with Chalky Surf Stories podcast, right?
Hit us up if you want one.
Let's go.
Left Coast novelty.
Yep.
Thank you,
Thanks, Mike.
Mike
Millian.
Millian.
Yeah.
Shade sunscreen.
Boom.
Good.
Strider.
Yeah, you don't want to get
Approved.
your nose burnt?
Good.
Strider's got a big nose.
It's your war paint for the sun.
If this thing works on him, you
Yeah.
are good.
Hey, you weren't drinking it, but shoots beer. Oh,
Yeah.
bro.
I'm just on a
yeah, we
little
were.
no beer thing right now, but
Japanese
I want
lager.
one of these.
You
for
want
my-
a
I want one for
Ashland?
when I go.
You want an Ashland hard seltzer
Good.
or a Villager Spirit?
I
You
mean,
have
I'd
those
love to
in
try
there
the
too?
Shoots one. Looks pretty good, but I'll take what you got.
Bro, we got Ashland,
Dang, watermelon.
watermelon. We
Oh my
got
gosh.
mango
Yeah, give me that.
strawberry.
Which one do you like?
Give me that one.
Which one is the
Dude,
All
we're good.
Villager Spirit.
Oh no, you can't do those. Those are heavy.
This is
Oh yeah, I don't
hey,
do that.
this is
kind.
11% alcohol.
Yeah.
bro.
Lennon, one of those.
Woo!
and
Woo!
one of those.
That's
and
the
he's
blackout.
fading.
All
Lennon's
right.
blacking out.
And then we are also sponsored by Just Live, a CBD
Meehan?
company. Meehan!
Yeah,
You know
Ian was
Meehan.
my old boss.
Dude, that one is Calm. This one is Sleep Gummies. And this one's Immunity. Bro, we're hooking you up, bro. And then
Mike,
Bonsai Bar.
I'm gonna need
Bonsai
bags to
bowl.
carry all this stuff.
Bonsai.
I feel like I did the Groms in the Pit series.
Good.
Good.
This is like your first event at HB when we did the
Bonsai
the
Bowl,
series.
baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Joe Bard's the man.
we
dude.
know how awesome
love
it is to
bonsai
get,
bowls.
and we
And-
appreciate all of our sponsors. Thank you guys.
Last but not least, thank
So
you
do I.
to Caballero Pools and Spas.
Yep. Good.
Sponsors.
Yeah, if you guys are looking to redo your pool or add a pool,
Also, thank you to this Neon Wave,
Massage.
killer shop on the East Coast. You
Yeah.
guys should talk to
Heard of
them
the Neon
about
Wave.
creating content because they're legit. Like they already create cool content, but I think they need a video aspect. So, got to introduce you guys
Let's
to
do
them.
it.
yeah.
Also,